Chapter 784. The personal disciple didn't seem to want to say much, because the battle between Xiao Chun and Zhao Hufeng was getting fiercer and fiercer. It had already reached a white-hot stage. In fact, Xiao Chun was also quite famous in the other three sacred sections. After all, Xiao Chun was the prospective holy son of the ancient sacred sect, and every time a new prospective holy son was born, the four sacred sects would naturally pay close attention to it. However, in the Sun Sacred Sect, almost all the rumors about Xiao Chun weren't very good. Some said that Xiao Chun was the weakest prospective holy son in the history of the four sacred sects, and some said that Xiao Chun didn't live up to his title of prospective holy son. Some even said that Xiao Chun could become the prospective holy son because the saints of the ancient sacred sect went easy on him. In short, the rumors in the Sun Sacred Sect all felt that Xiao Chun only had the title of prospective holy son, but didn't have the strength of a prospective holy son. It could be said that he was a paper tiger. Because of such rumors, many disciples in the Sun Sacred Sect didn't regard Xiao Chun as a prospective holy son. Of course, it wasn't only the Sun Sacred Sect, but also the other two sacred sections. However, rumors were just rumors. At this time, seeing that Xiao Chun could actually fight Zhao Hufeng to a standstill, the personal disciple of the Sun Sacred Sect was naturally shocked. Since he could already fight Zhao Hufeng to a standstill, could he still say that Xiao Chun didn't live up to his title? The battle became more and more fierce, and soon the two had exchanged hundreds of blows. Up to this point, Xiao Chun still didn't fall into a disadvantage, and Zhao Hufeng didn't have the slightest advantage. Involuntarily taking a deep breath, the personal disciple of the Sun Sacred Sect suddenly whispered to himself, "It seems that rumors really kill people." Just like Zhao Hufeng said, no one who can become a prospective holy son is simple and can't be judged by common sense. He was completely shocked by Xiao Chun, and those rumors collapsed on their own. At the same time, this pro-disciple of the Sun Saint Sect couldn't help but think of a sentence that Zhao Hufeng once said. When Xiao Chun had just become the fifth candidate of the ancient sacred sect, the news had already spread. Many disciples of the Sun Sacred Sect had begun to spread rumors that Xiao Chun wasn't worthy of being the candidate. However, at that time, Zhao Hufeng had only said one sentence in the face of these rumors. Don't think that all the saints of the ancient saint sect are fools. It's impossible for there to be anything fishy about the candidate holy son. Since Xiao Chun can become the candidate holy son, he must have something extraordinary about him. At least for you direct disciples, he's an unattainable existence. This was Zhao Hufeng's only evaluation of Xiao Chun. When he had first heard this personal disciple had not taken it seriously. But now, it seemed that Zhao Hufeng's words were completely correct. Sure enough, no one who could become the candidate holy son was simple. For a direct disciple like him, Xiao Chun was indeed an unattainable existence. Not only was this personal disciple shocked, but on the other side, Luo Dawei, Ding Tao, Jiang Hua, and Qin Shi were also shocked. Among them, Ding Tao was originally a disciple of the first Sacred Palace's punishment hall. Seeing Xiao Chun's strength, his heart was filled with excitement. On the other hand, Luo Dawei and Jiang Hua's expressions had become incomparably complicated. Originally, the two of them thought that Xiao Chun was just a facade, and that senior brother Du, he could crush him at any time. But now, the two of them had witnessed this battle with their own eyes. With the strength that Xiao Chun had displayed, if they really fought, the loser would most likely be senior brother Du Yi. At least, Du Yi couldn't be on par with Zhao Hufeng. Looking at each other, they could see shock, uneasiness, and disbelief in each other's eyes. Jiang Hua whispered in disbelief, "Impossible! How can Xiao Chun be so strong? Who would have thought that he was hiding his strength? He wasn't an ant at all, but a ferocious beast that could devour people at any time." It was ridiculous that Du Yi had said more than once that once there was a chance, he would directly suppress Xiao Chun and let him know that without strength, even if he became the candidate holy son, it was just an undeserved reputation. Ridiculous, simply ridiculous. When the time came, it would be hard to tell who would suppress who. Jiang Hua was incomparably shocked, and Luo Dawei was also busy muttering to himself blankly. It seems that all of us have underestimated Xiao Chun. At the same time, Luo Dawei and Jiang Hua both thought of a saying that had been circulating for a long time. You should never measure the strength of the Holy Sun and the candidate Holy Sun with your own eyes, because you don't understand what kind of world it is. Xiao Chun himself did not expect that the battle with Zhao Hefeng would cause such a great shock to the surrounding disciples, especially Luo Dawei and Jiang Hua. This battle had almost completely destroyed the faith in their hearts. They originally thought that victory was in their hands, but now it was suddenly knocked down from the clouds to the bottom of the valley. He was not Xiao Chun's opponent at all. Both of them thought at the same time. In the midst of everyone's shock, in the fierce battle, Zhao Hefeng was forced back by Xiao Chen's sword. Then, in front of everyone, Xiao Chen's sword was directly pressed against Zhao Hefeng's throat, and it would have pierced through Zhao Hefeng's throat if it had been a little bit closer. Brother Zhao, thank you for letting me win. Without harming Zhao Hefeng's life, the outcome had been decided. Xiao Chun withdrew his sword and smiled. At the same time, the originally terrifying aura also quickly withered and soon returned to the initial Dao Gate realm. It was like a completely different person. But at this moment, no one present dared to underestimate Xiao Chun, including Zhao Hefeng. Although Zhao Hefeng was also very curious about how Xiao Chun could forcibly raise his cultivation by an entire realm. But no matter what, Xiao Chun's strength was very strong, and this was a fact. He was not a paper tiger like the rumors said. It was no exaggeration to say that Xiao Chun definitely had the strength of a prospective saint. His position as the prospective saint was not exaggerated at all. Zhao Hefeng could even say that with Xiao Chun's strength, he might even have the strength to compete with the third prospective saint, let alone the fifth prospective saint. It should be known that Zhao Hefeng knew the third prospective saint of the ancient sacred sect, and the two had fought before. But in Zhao Hefeng's opinion, Xiao Chun's strength was stronger than that person. Looking at Xiao Chun, Zhao Hefeng also revealed a smile and said, Brother Xiao, you really surprised me. Indeed, rumors kill people. If the outside world knew Brother Zhao's true strength, I'm afraid they wouldn't say that. Hearing Zhao Hefeng's words, Xiao Chun also smiled and said, Then, Brother Zhao, can we talk about the cooperation now? With that said, Xiao Chun and Zhao Hefeng looked at the sky at the same time, only to see that the battle between Emperor Qing and the Flame Bear had also ended. The final result was as expected. Emperor Qing had the upper hand, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 785. The battle between Emperor Qing and Yin Xiong had also ended, and they landed one after another. This time, Yin Xiong finally looked at Xiao Chun. Although the two saints were fighting just now, the battle between Xiao Chun and Zhao Hefeng could not escape their eyes. Yin Xiong also did not expect Xiao Chun to be so strong, and he could not help but take another look at Xiao Chun. After probing each other for a while, the final result was a complete victory for the ancient sacred sect. Whether it was the saints or the prospective saints, the ancient sacred sect had the upper hand. Now that the battle is over, we can talk about business. Xiao Chun, you can talk to them yourself, Emperor Qing said indifferently. Without waiting for Xiao Chun to reply, Emperor Qing consciously retreated to the side. Clearly, he was not interested in what was going to happen next. Seeing that the Azure Emperor had retreated to the side out of boredom, Yin Xiong chuckled and said to Zhao Hefeng, Then you can talk to Xiao Chun. I don't care. Emperor Qing was not interested in these things, so Yin Xiong, who was a battle maniac, was even less interested. He simply left the decision to Zhao Hefeng. Just like that, the saint from both sides chose to ignore the matter, leaving Xiao Chun and Zhao Hefeng, the two prospective saints, to make the decision. In this regard, Xiao Chun did not encounter any problems. Zhao Hefeng, on the other hand, was obviously full of helplessness. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Their eyes met, and Xiao Chun did not beat around the bush. He directly told Zhao Hefeng about the cooperation. Hearing that Xiao Chun wanted to join forces with him, Zhao Huffeng's eyes flashed. He was clearly weighing the pros and cons, seeing that Zhao Huffeng was deep in thought. Xiao Chun was not in a hurry. He said indifferently, "Brother Zhao, to be honest, the Heavenly Saint sect and Sacredine sect have already joined forces. If we don't choose to join forces, we will definitely be defeated by them one by one." Xiao Chun was certain, or even certain, that the Heavenly Saint sect and Sacredine sect had already joined forces. Hearing this, Zhao Huffeng also understood that if that was the case, then the only way was to join forces. After a moment of silence, Zhao Huffeng slowly said, "In that case, Brother Xiao, if we join forces, how will the spiritual pool be divided in the end?" It was not impossible to join forces, but how would the spiritual pool be divided in the end? This had to be decided first. Xiao Chen had already known that Zhao Huffeng would say this, and he had already thought of a countermeasure in advance. Facing Zhao Huffeng's question, Zhao Huffeng's question, Xiao Chun smiled, and said, "How about we split the spiritual pool in 100 spirit realm? The Heavenly Saint sect." The Heavenly Saint sect was the Heavenly Saint sect, and the Heavenly Saint sect, because of Qin Shui's, was the Heavenly Heavens'. And the reason why the Heavenly Heaven was because of the Huffeng's, the sect. Hearing this, Zhao Huffeng did not immediately answer. Instead, he unconsciously glanced at Qin Shui, who was not far away. If what Xiao Chun said was true, and they had already defeated the Heavenly Saint sect, Xiao Chun still wanted to split the spiritual pool in the 100 spirit realm. The reason was self-evident. After a moment of silence, Zhao Huffeng laughed and said, "Haha, Brother Xiao is really a sentimental person." The meaning of Zhao Huffeng's words was very clear. The Heavenly Saint sect's spiritual pool did not need to be divided, but because of Qin Shui, Xiao Chen wanted to give the Heavenly Saint sect a share. Facing Zhao Huffeng's words, Xiao Chun did not avoid it and replied with a smile. "After defeating the Heavenly Saint sect, even if it's only 30% of the spiritual pool, Brother Zhao, your harvest will definitely be more than enough." Xiao Chen's words weren't false. If the Sacredine sect was truly defeated, each of the original 100 spiritual pawns would be able to obtain at least 30 spiritual pawns if they were to divide them among the 3 clans. Such a harvest would only be more than what they could obtain. Zhao Huffeng stared at Xiao Chun. After a while, he finally gave an answer. He smiled as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. "Okay, let's do as Xiao Chun said. After defeating the Heavenly Saint sect, the 3 sects will divide the spiritual pools equally." Zhao Huffeng finally chose to agree. Hearing this, Xiao Chen also revealed a smile. After convincing the Heavenly Saint sect, they would have the capital to contend with the Heavenly Saint sect and the Heavenly Saint sect. While Xiao Chun and Zhao Huffeng reached an agreement, on the other side of the 100 spirit realm, Frost Python and Yun Wan, who had already decided to join forces, did not act rashly. Seeing that Frost Python did not intend to chase after Xiao Chun, Yun Wan said with some displeasure, "Frost Python, what do you mean? If the 2 of us join forces, why don't we directly chase after Xiao Chun?" Hearing Yun Wan's words, Frost Python did not get angry and said indifferently, "If I'm not wrong, Xiao Chun must have already found the people of the Heavenly Saint sect. Maybe the 2 sides have already joined forces." Xiao Chun guessed that Frost Python might join forces with Yun Wan, and Frost Python also guessed that Xiao Chun might find the people of the Heavenly Saint sect. Hearing that Xiao Chun might join forces with the people of the Heavenly Saint sect, Yun Wan's face darkened. "If so, what should we do? Once Xiao Chun and the Heavenly Saint sect join forces, we will have no advantage at all," Yun Wan said with a worried expression. Hearing this, Frost Python was not nervous at all and said indifferently, "It's fine. This time, the leader of the Heavenly Saint sect is Yin Xiong. If it were someone else, it might be more troublesome. But Yin Xiong is a rough guy. There are many ways to deal with him. But Yun Wan, if you want to win, you and your people must listen to my orders unconditionally. What do you think?" It was easy to deal with Yin Xiong, but the people of the Heavenly Saint sect must listen to Frost Python's orders. Hearing this, Yin Wan's face darkened, but soon she nodded helplessly. There was no other way. If they wanted to defeat the alliance of the Heavenly Saints sect and the Heavenly Saints sect, they could only rely on Frost Python. Seeing Yin Luan nodding, Frost Python's smile became colder and colder. An extremely cold light flashed in his eyes as he muttered to himself in a cold voice. Xiao Chun, do you think that by joining forces with the Heavenly Saints sect, you can fight against me? This 100-spirit world battle is not a challenge tournament. This time, I'll let you know what it means to be a soldier. Frost Python said coldly, but in his heart, he added fiercely, "In Qin Shu, you bitch, I will not let you have an easy time." Frost Python's pursuit of Qin Shuru was well known in the Heavenly Saints sect, but Qin Shuru never gave him a chance. This time, after seeing Xiao Chun, he was even more so. Frost Python's love turned into hatred. However, Frost Python did not dare to do anything to Qin Shuru. After all, Qin Shuru was the disciple of the Heavenly Saints sect's patriarch. But if he could not deal with Qin Shuru, then he would make an example of Xiao Chun. Slowly getting up, Frost Python said coldly, "Let's make an example of Yin Xiong first." He planned to make an example of Yin Xiong first. Then, Frost Python began to deploy. After gathering everyone, Frost Python explained the next plan in detail. Please add, vote, recommend. Chapter 786. There were no rules in the 100 Spirits pool competition, and any method could be used. The only thing that mattered was the final result. Because of this, Han Python wasn't too worried after guessing that Xiao Chun might have teamed up with the Sun Saint sect. This wasn't an arena competition, and there were many methods that could be used. In addition, the person leading the Sun Saint sect this time was the famous brute, Yin Xiong. In Han Python's words, Yin Xiong was a brute with simple limbs and a developed brain. Han Python might be wary of Yin Xiong in a one-on-one fight, but in the 100 Spirits pool competition, Han Python had absolute confidence that he could kill Yin Xiong. Han Python explained the plan in detail to Yun Luan and the others. It took him more than 2 hours to explain. After listening to Han Python's plan, everyone's expression became a little strange. As for the Frost Python's plan, everyone only had one evaluation in their hearts, and that was that it was extremely sinister. Han Python, won't you offend the Sun Saints sect by doing this? Yun Luan asked with a worried expression. Hearing Yun Luan's words, the Han Python said indifferently, "The competition for supremacy of the 100 Spirits pool is based on everyone's ability. What's the big deal? Besides, Yun Luan, as the saintess of the Sacredine sect, would you be afraid of the Blazing Bear and the Sacred Sun sect?" Everyone felt that this plan was a little sinister, but Han Python didn't care at all. It could even be said that this was the only way to win. After all, Han Python and the others had little chance of winning in a head-on fight. After hearing Han Python's words, Yun Luan gritted her teeth and nodded. "Okay, we'll do as you say. Let's get rid of the brute, Yin Xiong, first." Yun Luan nodded in agreement. As a result, the others naturally didn't dare to have any objections. After knowing the next plan, Han Python and the others separated and headed in the direction of the Sun Saint sect. During the journey, Han Python and the Saintess of the Sky Saint sect walked side by side. That's right, the Saintess of the Sky Saint sect was a young girl named Yin Ci. As they walked side by side, Han Python said to Yin Ci, "Yin Ci, you still have a mission. You'll be the last to appear this time. It's best if you can take the opportunity to get rid of Zhao Hufeng." The Frost Python said faintly. Hearing this, Yin Ci was stunned at first, but then she said helplessly, "Saint, you want me to sneak up on Zhao Hufeng?" Yin Ci said, sneaking an attack on Zhao Hufeng was a despicable method. Although she did not say it out loud, the Frost Python could tell that Yin Ci did not want to use such a despicable method to attack Zhao Hufeng. Frost Python knew what Yin Ci meant, but he wasn't angry at all. Instead, he smiled faintly and said, "Yin Ci, sometimes we can't stick to trifles when doing things. Now that our strength isn't as good as the other party, if we can take down Zhao Hufeng as well, then the rest will be much easier. Do you understand?" "But Holy Sun, Hearing this, Yin Si was still unwilling to do so. After all, news of a sneak attack would spread. In the face of Frost Python's order, Yin Si was a little conflicted. At this point, Frost Python's face gradually turned cold. What? You want to disobey my order? Frost Python's face had already turned cold, and his tone had also become unfriendly. Seeing this, Yin Si quickly bowed and said, I don't dare. I will obey the Holy Sun's order. That's good. Remember, don't make a move immediately. You must wait until Zhao Hufeng and the Saintess candidate of the sacred insect start fighting. You must succeed in one strike, Frost Python said. While speaking, Frost Python and his group had already arrived at the boundary of the sacred insect. At the same time, on the other side, Xiao Chun and the rest were also rushing towards the sacred insect. In a dense forest, Frost Python and his group had already set up an ambush, waiting for Xiao Chun and the rest to walk into the trap. It didn't take long before a personal disciple of the Sacred Yin clan came back with news, saying that Xiao Chun and the others were approaching. Furthermore, the people of the Sun Saint clan were there as well. It seemed that they had indeed joined forces. They're here. Frost Python's eyes became even colder. He nodded to Yun Wan, and then the group dispersed, waiting for Xiao Chun and the rest to arrive. Not knowing that Frost Python and his group had already set up an ambush here, Xiao Chun and the rest were still moving forward at a moderate pace. Compared to Frost Python and his group, Xiao Chun and the rest were more relaxed. After all, it was a joint operation between the two sections. Moreover, the people of the Sacred Sun sect did not listen to Xiao Chun's orders at all. Along the way, it was originally peaceful. However, without any warning, just as Xiao Chun and the rest were moving forward, a golden talisman shot out from the dense forest, shooting towards Emperor Qing like lightning. He noticed the talisman immediately, but he was still a step too late. Just as Emperor Qing was about to react, the talisman exploded, instantly forming a golden cage. The cage locked Emperor Qing tightly. Golden light shone brightly as Emperor Qing was locked in the golden cage. Emperor Qing's face darkened. Golden cage, sacred talisman. He recognized the talisman at a glance. It was the golden cage, sacred talisman, a saint-level talisman. Once trapped, even Emperor Qing would not be able to break out easily. Just as Emperor Qing finished speaking, Yun Wan and the disciples of the Sacred Yin sect appeared in front of Xiao Chun and the rest, looking directly at Yin Xiong. Yun Wan sneered. Yin Xiong, come and die. Her target was clear. It was Yin Xiong. Hearing Yun Wan's words, Yin Xiong, who was a battle maniac, was naturally not afraid. He laughed loudly and said fearlessly, Yun Wan, I haven't seen you for a few days, and you've grown bolder. I want to see who will die today. As he spoke, Yin Xiong attacked Yun Wan. Seeing this, Xiao Chun frowned. He had a bad feeling in his heart. After seeing Yin Xiong attack, Xiao Chun did not think much and hurriedly shouted, Yin Xiong, Holy Sun, wait! Xiao Chun wanted to stop Yin Xiong, but Yin Xiong did not listen to him at all. In the blink of an eye, he was already engaged in battle with Yun Wan. Seeing Xiao Chun's worried face, Zhao Hufeng smiled faintly and said, Brother Xiao, don't worry. Yun Wan is not senior brother Yin Xiong's opponent. He was very confident in Yin Xiong's strength, but Xiao Chun did not reply. This was not a matter of strength. Turning his head, he saw Yun Wan fighting while retreating. The two of them were gradually moving away from the battlefield. For a moment, Xiao Chun's frown deepened. In a one-on-one battle, Yin Xiong's strength might be stronger than Yun Wan, but don't forget that the Frost Python had yet to appear. Once the two Holy Suns attacked together, no matter how strong Yin Xiong was, he would not be a match for them. Please add, vote, recommend. Chapter 787. Xiao Chun had vaguely guessed something. In fact, from the beginning, Xiao Chun had already realized that something was wrong. At the same time, if Yin Xiong was willing to listen to him, there wouldn't be too much of a problem. It was a pity that Yin Xiong was too impulsive. He viewed battle as his life. Perhaps the Frost Python saw this point and was so confident. Seeing that Yin Xiong and Yun Wan were getting further and further away, Xiao Chun had already guessed the final outcome. He believed that the frost python was hiding somewhere not far away, waiting to take down Yin Xiong first. First, it trapped Emperor Qing, then it lured Yin Xiong away. One had to admit that the frost python strategy was very good. It made full use of Yin Xiong's impulsive and brainless character. He could almost predict Yin Xiong's outcome. At the same time, Zhao Hufeng roared and led the disciples of the Sun Saints sect to attack. The two sides immediately engaged in a fierce battle. Seeing this, Xiao Chun didn't take action. Without receiving Xiao Chen's order, Qin Shu, Luo Dawei, Ding Tao, and Jiang Hua didn't take action either. Turning his head to look at Emperor Qing, Xiao Chen asked, "Senior brother Emperor Qing, how long do you need to break this talisman?" 15 minutes, the Qing Emperor replied. It would take at least 15 minutes to break this golden prison sacred talisman. Until now, Zhao Hufeng and the others hadn't realized that they had fallen into a trap. This time, the frost python's target wasn't them, but Yin Xiong. The people who stayed here were only there to delay them. The two sides were already engaged in a fierce battle. Seeing this, Xiao Chun had no choice but to ask Luo Dawei and the others to help Zhao Hufeng and the others. He had already guessed that they had fallen into a trap, but now that Emperor Qing was trapped, Xiao Chen obviously couldn't go and help Yin Xiong. Needless to say, Yin Xiong must have been besieged by the frost python and Yun Luan. If he went there, he would just be sending himself to death. Moreover, it was exactly what the frost python wanted. Yin Xiong was already out of options, unless Emperor Qing could escape. However, other than Yin Xiong, Xiao Chun found another problem. The Saintess-to-be of the Sky Saints sect had yet to appear. The two sides were already engaged in a fierce battle, but the Saintess of the Heavenly Saints sect, Yin Ci, did not appear. Xiao Chun frowned slightly. There was still a candidate who had not shown up, which made him somewhat puzzled. At the same time, he became slightly vigilant. Seeing this, Qin Shiru asked in confusion, "Husband, aren't we going to do anything?" Zhao Hufeng, Luo Dawei, and the others, as well as the disciples of the Sacred Yin sect and Heavenly Saints sect, were already engaged in a fierce battle. However, Xiao Chun had no intention of joining in. After hearing Qin Shiru's words, Xiao Chun spoke up. "Now is not the right time to continue the battle. Brother Yin Xiong is probably in danger. Once the frost python and Yun Luan finish him off, we will be in danger. We have to leave as soon as possible. Moreover, the prospective Holy Maiden of the Heaven Saints sect has not appeared yet." The current situation was obviously not suitable to continue the battle. This time, the frost python and the others had indeed caught Xiao Chun and the others off guard. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Qin Shiru also frowned slightly. The prospective Holy Maiden of the Heavenly Saints sect? Wasn't that Yin Ci? Xiao Chen's idea was very simple. He would wait for Emperor Qing to break the golden prison holy talisman, then find an opportunity to retreat and minimize their losses. While secretly being on guard, Zhao Hufeng was already locked in a fierce battle with the prospective Holy Maiden of the Sacred Yin sect. Zhao Hufeng, who was impulsive, obviously did not notice anything strange until now. At this moment, Zhao Hufeng was probably only focused on the battle. However, in the midst of such an intense battle, a cold light suddenly flashed across the back of Zhao Hufeng's heart. It was a sudden attack, and the attacker was none other than the prospective Holy Maiden of the Heavenly Saints sect, Yin Ci. Originally, Zhao Hufeng hadn't made a move since Han Mang's words. Now, he finally found a chance to kill Han Mang with one blow. Feeling the strong killing intent coming from behind him, Zhao Hufeng's face changed greatly, but it was too late. It was obviously impossible to dodge. He did not expect Yin Ci to be hiding in the dark and suddenly make a move. Just when Zhao Hufeng thought it was over, Xiao Chun, who had also not made a move, flashed and blocked Yin Ci's path, successfully blocking the attack for Zhao Hufeng. Xiao Chun, who had always been on guard against Yin Ci, was right. He saved Zhao Hufeng. Xiao Chun said, "The prospective Holy Maiden of the Heavenly Saints sect actually chose to launch a sneak attack. What an eye-opener." Xiao Chen's voice was very calm. Hearing this, A strange look flashed across Yin Si's eyes, but she did not say anything. Since Xiao Chun had blocked the killing blow, the only thing left to do was to fight head-on. The aura on her body did not decrease, but instead increased. Yin Si did not hesitate and directly slashed her sword at Xiao Chun. In the face of Yin Si's attack, Xiao Chun could only rely on Xiao Sheng's power again. There was no other way. Compared to the other prospective holy sons and holy maidens, Xiao Chun was still not a match for them. He could only rely on Xiao Sheng's help. The two of them immediately engaged in a fierce battle. Xiao Chun wanted to retreat, but now was not the time. He had to at least hold on until Emperor Qing broke the seal of the Golden Prison Holy Talisman. Otherwise, Emperor Qing would be in danger once they retreated. He had to hold on until Emperor Qing broke the seal of the Golden Prison Holy Talisman. Both of them held long swords, and in the blink of an eye, they had exchanged more than 100 blows. However, from the beginning, Xiao Chun firmly had the upper hand and was completely suppressing Yin Si. Yin Si clearly did not expect Xiao Chun to be so strong. As time passed, Yin Si found it difficult to hold on. She had almost completely gained the upper hand. As such, Xiao Chun's attacks became more and more ferocious. If he could get rid of Yin Si here, it would be a big blow to the Heavenly Saint sect. Yin Si could not block Xiao Chun's violent attacks at all. Seeing that she was about to lose, Yin Si subconsciously looked at Qin Shiru and immediately cried out, "Junior sister Shuei-Ro, save me." Yin Si was not a match for Xiao Chun, or rather, not a match for Xiao Sheng. Yin Si actually asked Qin Shiru for help. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was slightly stunned and looked at Qin Shiru. At this moment, Qin Shiru's face revealed a conflicted expression. In fact, Qin Shiru had already noticed Yin Si from the beginning when she appeared. It was precisely because the person who came was Yin Si that Qin Shiru did not choose to make a move. In the Heavenly Saint sect, Qin Shiru did not have many friends, and Yin Si could be considered one of them. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, Qin Shiru did not want to make a move on Yin Si. At this moment, hearing that Yin Si was asking him for help, Qin Shiru was also somewhat conflicted, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 788. Yin Si actually asked Qin Shiru for help. For a moment, Xiao Qin's hand movements paused for a moment, but Yin Si took advantage of this opportunity to escape. Xiao Chun missed the perfect opportunity to eliminate Yin Si, but he wasn't too upset about it. At the same time, on the other side, Yin Xiong was unknowingly led by Yun Luan into a valley during his battle with her. The valley was not large, but just as the flame bear entered the valley, clouds of purple mist strangely rose from the ground. When faced with the purple mist, the cloud Luan immediately swallowed a special antidote. As for the flame bear, he was caught off guard and allowed the purple mist to enter his body. Purple evil qi. Yin Xiong's face sank as he felt powerless all of a sudden. The purple evil qi was a kind of man-made poisonous gas. It was very terrifying. Even if a semi-saint accidentally inhaled it, they wouldn't be able to expel it immediately. Only a saint could resist the invasion of the purple evil qi. Yin Xiong didn't expect Yun Luan to have arranged the purple evil qi, so he didn't dare to be careless. He immediately circulated the spiritual energy in his body in an attempt to expel the purple evil qi that had already entered his body. But unfortunately, it wasn't of much use. When the purple evil qi entered Yin Xiong's body, Yin Luan wasn't affected in the slightest with the help of the special detoxification pill. She looked at Yin Xiong with a smile and said indifferently, "Yin Xiong, don't waste your energy. You can't force the purple evil qi out. Just accept your fate obediently." Yin Luan, do you think you could defeat me by using such despicable means? Yin Xiong snorted coldly upon hearing Yun Luan's words. His eyes burned with raging flames. Yin Xiong thought that the purple murderous qi was set up by Yun Luan, but he didn't know that the purple murderous qi was actually set up by Frost Python. In order to successfully get rid of Yin Xiong, Frost Python didn't hesitate to set up the purple murderous Qi. In this way, if he and Yun Luan worked together, getting rid of Yin Xiong could be said to be a sure thing. Just as Yin Xiong's voice fell, an indifferent voice sounded. Yin Xiong, you should obediently stand aside and rest. Along with this voice, the Frost Python's figure appeared in front of Yun Luan. Seeing the Frost Python, Yin Xiong immediately understood everything. It turned out that their target was him. First, they had trapped Emperor Qing, then lured him here and killed him first. As a result, the ancient sacred sect and Sun Sacred Sect lost one holy son. This was a huge advantage for Frost Python and the others. After all, the difference between losing a holy son and a holy was huge. Yin Xiong's words, ants, and Yin Xiong's, he naturally knew his fate was, and couldn't help but regretted it. It was. But it says couldn't help but couldn't help but twos to him. S to ends S2. Good, very good. Frost Python, Yun Luan, Yin Xiong, will remember what happened today. I'll definitely get back at you in the future. Cut the crap. Let's fight. Yin Xiong knew that he had no chance of winning, but he didn't intend to give up. As soon as he finished speaking, Yin Xiong fiercely punched out, taking the initiative to attack Frost Python and Yun Luan. You overestimate yourself, Frost Python said indifferently in the face of Yin Xiong's attack. Then, he and Yun Luan looked at each other, and the two of them attacked at the same time. The three holy sons and holy daughters engaged in a fierce battle. Yin Xiong was indeed no match for two holy sons and holy daughters at the same time. With the addition of the purple evil Qi, Yin Xiong was at a disadvantage. Just like Xiao Chun, Frost Python's target was indeed Yin Xiong. Once he got rid of Yin Xiong, the rest would be much easier. The battle didn't last long, only a little more than 15 minutes. Yin Xiong was defeated by Frost Python and Yun Luan. His figure dissipated, and he was eliminated. After successfully getting rid of Yin Xiong, Frost Python and Yun Luan didn't hesitate and rushed in the direction of Xiao Chun and the rest. However, when Frost Python and Yun Luan arrived, Emperor Qing had already broken the Golden Prison's sacred talisman, and Xiao Chun and the rest had already chosen to retreat. Moreover, with the advantage of numbers, Xiao Chun and the rest had successfully eliminated a core disciple of Sacredine's sect, which could be considered as taking back 10% of the battle. However, the difference between a core disciple and a holy son was needless to say. It could be said that Frost Python's side now had an absolute advantage even after losing a core disciple. There was already a gap in the number of holy sons, and it was difficult for Emperor Qing to take on both Frost Python and Yun Luan at the same time. Mission accomplished, Frost Python said coldly. Xiao Chun, let's see how long you can run. From now on, the 100 Spirit Realm will be your nightmare. The situation had completely reversed. When Frost Python and Yun Luan had successfully gotten rid of Yin Xiong, Xiao Chun and the rest had already retreated far away. By a small stream, Xiao Chun looked at Zhao Hufeng. Previously, he had already told Zhao Hufeng his guess, and Xiao Chun boldly guessed that Yin Xiong was most likely dead. Hearing that Frost Python and Yun Luan would join forces to attack Yin Xiong, Zhao Hufeng instantly regretted it, and a look of regret appeared on his face. Zhao Hufeng looked at Xiao Chun and said, Brother Xiao, this is all my fault. I didn't listen to you. It could be said that this was a great defeat. After getting rid of Yin Xiong, Frost Python and the rest could now do whatever they wanted in the 100 Spirit Realm. The ancient Sacred Sect and Sacred Sun clan had completely lost the ability to fight Frost Python and the rest head-on. Hearing Zhao Hufeng's self-blame, Xiao Chun did not blame him too much. He only said lightly, It is indeed a great defeat. However, the final outcome has not been determined yet. We still have the ability to fight back. But Xiao Chun, we only have Emperor Qing's holy son here. How can we stop Yun Luan and Frost Python? Zhao Hufeng said unwillingly. Hearing this, Xiao Chun said, We definitely can't fight them head-on. However, what if we have a way to separate them? As long as it is a one-on-one battle, I think Emperor Qing is confident that he can defeat both Frost Python and Yun Luan. Emperor Qing might not be a match for Frost Python and Yun Luan in a two-on-one battle. However, Emperor Qing was not afraid of them in a one-on-one battle. Therefore, the main problem was how to separate them and defeat them one by one. There was no good way at the moment, but it was still too early to admit defeat. After comforting Zhao Hufeng, Xiao Chun came to Qin Shiru and asked with a smile, "Shiru, do you know Yin Ci?" Previously, Yin Ci had successfully escaped with the help of Qin Shiru. Otherwise, Xiao Chun would definitely be able to defeat her. Looking at Qin Shiru's appearance, he should know Yin Ci and they might be on good terms. Therefore, Xiao Chun asked curiously, "Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote. Recommended." Chapter 789. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Qin Shiru answered honestly. He did know Yin Ci and had a good relationship with her. However, Qin Shiru also said that if Yin Ci tried to stop Xiao Chun could get rid of her. He wouldn't say anything. Anyway, she wouldn't really die in the Soul Seal Holy Array. He was indeed familiar with Yin Ci, but if Yin Ci was compared to Xiao Chun, Qin Shiru would naturally stand on Xiao Chen's side without hesitation. Hearing Qin Shiru's words, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "I see. If it's possible, I'll let her go." Qin Shiru didn't beg Xiao Chun to let Yin Ci go, but Xiao Chun took the initiative to ask. Hearing this, Qin Shiru smiled and didn't say anything more. Everyone rested for a while, but after this battle, the disciples of the Sun Saint sect were obviously in low morale. It couldn't be helped. After all, their holy son had been eliminated. The most relaxed person present was probably Emperor Qing. Although they were both holy sons, Emperor Qing didn't seem to care about Yin Xiong's elimination at all. He didn't seem to be anxious at all and was still very calm. Anyway, he was only responsible for blocking the other holy sons. No matter if it was him or the other two, Emperor Qing would be responsible for blocking them. As for the result, he could only say that he would try his best. After chatting with Qin Shiru for a while, Xiao Chun went to find Zhao Hufeng. Now that Xiao Chen's side had lost a holy son, Frost Python's side would definitely be more unscrupulous. Therefore, in order to reverse the current situation, they had to find a way to reduce Frost Python's side. It would be best if they could also kill a holy son. Obviously, it was impossible to fight head-on now. Only by separating the enemies would they have a chance. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chen also thought of a way, but it was relatively risky. He told Zhao Hufeng his idea. Hearing this, Zhao Hufeng was silent for a while and then said worriedly, "Brother Xiao, isn't this too risky? In the current situation, we can only give it a try." Hearing this, Xiao Chun said lightly, "It was definitely risky, but how could they turn defeat into victory without taking risks?" Hearing Xiao Chen's answer, Zhao Hufeng fell into deep thought. In the end, Zhao Hufeng gritted his teeth and nodded fiercely. "Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Brother's method. Brother Zhao's way." In this way, they would naturally have to spread out to guard side. In zestss, two and chun. Two's is ants and the other's is. This way, they end the holy chun and twos. And twos is to s2. Twos to do it. Xiao was, of course, of Xiao's, that act to split. However, the biggest problem with this method was that if it failed, the Ancient Saint sect and the Sun Saint sect would not have a single spiritual pool. This was a huge price to pay. This would force the Holy Chun and the others to split up. However, the next problem was how to separate the Holy Chun and Yun Luan. Judging from Frost Python's viciousness, he obviously knew that the only way to win against Emperor Qing was if he and Yun Luan worked together. Otherwise, if Emperor Qing met them alone, they would be defeated one by one. Therefore, Xiao Chun guessed that Frost Python would not be easily separated from Yun Luan. Even if the other disciples of the two sects were defeated one by Xiao Chun and the others, the two of them would probably stick together tightly. If they could not get rid of Frost Python and Yun Luan, it would not be considered a victory. After all, the Holy Sun and Holy Maiden were the key to victory in the Hundred Spirit world. Ordinary methods would not be able to trick Frost Python and Yun Wan. After thinking about it, Xiao Chun could only think of one method, which was to use himself as bait. With Xiao Chun as the bait, the Frost Python would definitely come after Xiao Chun. In this way, it would be possible to separate the Frost Python from Yun Wan. At that time, Xiao Chun would lure the Frost Python away, and the Qing Emperor would wait for the opportunity to kill Yun Wan. It seemed like a good plan, but it was unknown whether Xiao Chun could escape from the Frost Python's pursuit. It was very dangerous, but there was no other way. After much consideration, Xiao Chun finally decided to take a gamble. He told Emperor Qing his idea. He heard that Xiao Chun planned to use himself as bait to lure Frost Python to chase after him, while Emperor Qing would kill Yun Wan. Hearing this, Emperor Qing looked at Xiao Chun strangely, as if he was surprised by Xiao Chun's decision. However, he did not say anything. Emperor Qing nodded lightly. Sure, but you have to delay that fellow for at least 4 hours. Otherwise, I won't be able to kill Yun Wan. He had to delay the Frost Python for at least 4 hours. After all, although Emperor Qing was stronger than Yun Wan, it was not easy for him to take her down. Hearing Emperor Qing's words, Xiao Chun gritted his teeth and agreed. With Xiao Chun's strength, it was naturally impossible for him to delay the saint for 4 hours. However, Xiao Chun still had an old monster in his body, and that was Xiao Sheng. Although Xiao Sheng was only a saint soul now, Xiao Sheng had lived for so many years. One could imagine how many tricks he had up his sleeves. As long as he was prepared in advance, with the help of external forces, it was possible to trap Frost Python. With a plan in mind, Xiao Chun began to prepare. He found the talismans that Xiao Sheng needed from the crowd, and these talismans were used to inscribe talisman arrays. After collecting the talismans, Xiao Chun led the crowd and began to move. On the other side, the Frost Python side had won a great victory, and it was just as Xiao Chun had expected. After killing Blazing Bear, Frost Python and the rest were no longer afraid. Instead, they swaggered into the Sun Saint sect's territory. Along the way, the spiritual pools that once belonged to the Sun Saint sect were all taken by Frost Python and Yun Wan. In just half a day, almost 3/4 of the 100 spiritual pools in the 100 spiritual pool had been taken by Yun Wan and Frost Python. At this moment, only the spiritual pools in the ancient Saint sect's territory had not been taken by them. However, based on the current situation, it was only a matter of time. With such a great harvest, the disciples of the Heavenly Saint sect and Sacredine sect were naturally overjoyed. With so many spiritual pools, they would obviously be rewarded by their sects when they returned. Along the way, Frost Python said strangely, "Along the way, I haven't seen anyone from the Ancient Saints sect and Sun Saint sect. Are they just watching us take the spiritual pools?" It was strange. These spiritual pools seemed to be given away by Xiao Chun, and there was no resistance at all. It seemed that Xiao Chun and the rest had given up. After all, the 100 Spirit World's battle for hegemony was to fight for these spiritual pools. Now that the spiritual pools were being taken away, Xiao Chun and the rest did not do anything. This was not right. In the past, even if they knew that they were no match for them, they would not give up the spiritual pools so easily. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 790. Everything was going too smoothly, so smoothly that the Frost Python felt a little strange and started to think about Xiao Chen's purpose. They didn't have any unnecessary contact with the Frost Python and the others. Although they were distressed about the loss of the spiritual pools, they had no other choice but to give them to the Frost Python. When they returned to the territory of the Ancient Saint sect, Xiao Chun asked them to split up and go behind the Frost Python and the others to seize the spiritual pools and try to separate the Frost Python and the others. They wanted to separate the Frost Python and the others. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, they split into two groups. Zhao Hufeng led the disciples of the Sun Saint sect in one group, while Qin Shu, Luo Dewei, Ding Tao, and Jiang Hua led the other group. They didn't need to fight to the death. They only needed to lure the disciples of the Heavenly Saints sect and Sacredine sect away to create an opportunity for Shao Chun and the Qing Emperor. As long as the Qing Emperor killed Yun Luan, things would be much simpler. Hearing Shao Qin's order, no one objected. They split into two groups and started to move. Shao Chun wasn't worried about letting Qin Shiru and Luo Dawei stay together. Since the battle with Zhao Hufeng, Shao Chun clearly felt that Luo Dawei and Jiang Hua's attitude towards him had changed a lot. Therefore, Shao Chun wasn't worried that they would harm Qin Shiru. Everyone started to move. Shao Chun and the Qing Emperor secretly approached the Frost Python and Yun Luan. Once Qin Shiru and the others led the disciples away, Shao Chun and the Qing Emperor would make their move. As they approached the Frost Python and the others, Shao Chun and the Azure Emperor did not move quickly in order to hide their tracks. Along the way, the Azure Emperor asked curiously, "Shao Chun, are you sure you can stall the Frost Python?" The Qing Emperor was a little doubtful that they could stall the Frost Python for at least 4 hours. Hearing this, Shao Chun smiled and said, "It's impossible for me to do it alone. However, it can be done with the help of external forces." As he spoke, Shao Chun stopped and sized up the surrounding environment. This was a dense forest, and there were no spiritual pools in the surroundings. It was a good place to construct a talisman array. While looking around, Shao Chun asked Shao Sheng, "Ancestor, what do you think? Is this place feasible?" "Sure," Shao Sheng replied. This was indeed the best location to construct the symbol array. Immediately, under the guidance of Shao Sheng, Shao Chun began to construct the symbol array. Of course, the talisman formation Shao Chun constructed was not a divine level talisman formation. Firstly, with Shao Chun's attainment in formations, he could not construct a divine level talisman formation even with Shao Sheng's command. Secondly, Shao Chun did not have the materials to construct a divine level talisman formation. Therefore, the talisman formation that Shao Sheng taught Shao Chun to construct was a heaven-level top-tier talisman formation called the Black Chain Formation. It was a type of formation that specialized in trapping. It did not have any offensive capabilities and could only be used for trapping. Of course, according to Shao Sheng's estimation, the Black Chain Formation might not be able to trap the Frost Python forever, but it should not be a problem for 4 hours. Seeing Shao Chun construct the symbol array, the Qing Emperor's eyes gradually revealed a strange look. Although the Qing Emperor was not proficient in talisman formations, he still had a good eye. He could see that the talisman formation that Shao Chun constructed was very mysterious. Moreover, the Qing Emperor had a vague feeling that even if he was trapped in it, it would be difficult for him to escape in a short period of time. He did not expect Shao Chun to be able to construct such a mysterious talisman formation. The Qing Emperor could not help but be curious. This newly promoted fifth holy son did not seem simple. Not only was his strength unexpected, but he was also proficient in talisman formations. Of course, the Qing Emperor did not know that Shao Chun did not know anything about talisman formations. If it were not for Shao Sheng's instructions, Shao Chun would not even be able to construct an earth-level talisman formation, let alone a heaven-level talisman formation. Shao Chun would not even be able to construct an earth-level talisman formation. In total, it took more than 6 hours to complete the Black Chain Formation. Moreover, Shao Chun deliberately made some camouflage. If one did not observe carefully, one would not be able to discover that there was a talisman formation hidden in this place. After setting up all this, Shao Chun consumed a lot of energy and swallowed a few elixirs. Now, all he had to do was wait for Qin Shiru and the others to take action. At the same time, the Qing Emperor also sat cross-legged with his eyes closed and did not speak. After spending some time together, Shao Chun also understood the Qing Emperor's character. This guy was very arrogant and could even be said to be somewhat arrogant. He would not even say a word to those he looked down on. However, apart from being arrogant, the Qing Emperor was also a very good person. At least, although the Qing Emperor said that he did not care about other things, he often took good care of the people from the Ancient Saints sect. This was something that Shao Chun could see. While recovering the spiritual energy in his body, he waited for Qin Shiru and the others to take action. Soon, Qin Shiru and the others from the Heavenly Saints sect and Sacred sect finally began to take action. Almost at the same time, the two spiritual pools were overtaken by them, and the spiritual qi light pillars quickly changed color. Seeing the spiritual qi light pillars changing color, Shao Chun and the Qing Emperor opened their eyes almost at the same time. After looking at each other, the two of them flashed and rushed toward Frost Python and the others. Qin Shiru and the others had already taken action, so Frost Python would definitely send people back to rescue them. Even if he would leave some disciples behind, there would not be many of them. This was Shao Chen's opportunity. On the other hand, just as Shao Chun had expected, Frost Python and Yunwan both sent people back to rescue them after sensing that someone had taken the spiritual pool behind them. Of course, Frost Python and Yunwan did not separate as they were afraid of the Qing Emperor. Everything was going according to Shao Chen's plan. At this time, there were no other disciples around Frost Python and Yunwan, and only the two of them walked together. Perhaps Frost Python thought that as long as he and Yunwan did not separate, there would be no problem. After all, they only needed to pay attention to the Qing Emperor. As for the others, Frost Python did not care. However, it was a good idea. Unfortunately, Frost Python did not know that at this time, he had already been completely tricked by Shao Chun. Just as the disciples of the Heavenly Saints sect and Sacred sect were returning to rescue them, Shao Chun suddenly rushed out of the dense forest. Seeing Shao Chun, Frost Python, and Yunwan were stunned. However, before they could say anything, Shao Chun had already taken the initiative to shout angrily. Frost Python, as the saint, you actually use such despicable means. You are not worthy of my Shuero. Let me tell you, my Shuero is not someone you can be with in this lifetime. The despicable method that Shao Chun mentioned was naturally the method that the Frost Python used to deal with the Flame Bear. Normally, the Frost Python would not fall for such an obvious method of provocation. However, Shao Chun kept talking about his Shuero. Immediately, the Frost Python was enraged. In order to anger a man in the shortest time possible, the best way was naturally to use a woman. Moreover, it had to be a woman that he liked. Frost Python already hated Shao Chun. Now that he was provoked by Shao Chun, he immediately shouted angrily, "Shao Chun, you are courting death." As he said that, he attacked Shao Chun, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 791. In the blink of an eye, it was completely infuriated by Shao Chun. The reason for this was that the Frost Python was not vigilant against Shao Chun at all. On the other hand, the Frost Python already hated Shao Chun to the core. Furthermore, Shao Chun used Qin Shiru to provoke it. Due to these two reasons, the Frost Python did not realize that Yunwan was alone when it chased after Shao Chun. Once the Qing Emperor appeared at this time, Yunwan would be in great danger. Facing the Frost Python's attack, Shao Chun said to Shao Sheng, "Old ancestor, I'm counting on you." In order to lure the Frost Python away, not only did they have to draw the black chain array and prepare in advance, they also had to lure it into the array. Therefore, during the entire process, Shao Chun could not be caught by the Frost Python. Otherwise, he would be caught before he reached the black chain array, and all their previous efforts would be in vain. In order to achieve this, they could only rely on Shao Sheng's strength. Otherwise, with Shao Chen's own strength, he would not be able to escape the Frost Python's pursuit. Hearing Shao Chen's words, Shao Sheng smiled bitterly. To think that he, the #1 victor in the Tiana continent, would be chased by a saint today. It felt like a tiger being bullied by a dog. Of course, the Frost Python was not a dog, but a poisonous snake. In an instant, it took control of Shao Chen's body. Without stopping, Shao Sheng took control of the body, turned around, and ran away. Seeing Shao Chun running away, the Frost Python did not have time to think. It immediately chased after him and shouted angrily, "Shao Chun, do you think you can still escape today?" As it spoke, it quickly chased after him. The two of them quickly disappeared into the dense forest. leaving Yun Luan alone in the same place. Seeing the frost python chasing after Xiao Chun, Yun Luan said with disdain, "Men are all the same. When it comes to women, they become idiots." Obviously, Yun Luan despised the frost python's actions. However, just as she finished speaking, a chuckle was heard. If the frost python was not stupid, I wouldn't have a chance to attack. Along with this voice, the Qing Emperor, who had been hiding in the dark, finally appeared in front of Yun Luan. When Yun Luan saw the Qing Emperor, her expression changed. At the same time, she understood that this was a trap. Xiao Chen's appearance was to lure the frost python's eye, and Yun Luan's emperor. Yun Luan was obviously scolding the frost python. However, the Emperor Qing did not say anything about it. He immediately chose to attack and take down Yun Luan as soon as possible to prevent further trouble. Facing Emperor Qing's sudden attack, Yun Luan's expression changed, but she did not give up. Instead, she resisted with all her might. At the same time, she said coldly, "Emperor Qing, you are too naive. Do you really think that Xiao Chun can hold off the frost python? When the frost python comes back, you won't be able to escape. You don't have to worry about that. Take this," the Qing Emperor replied nonchalantly. At the same time, his attacks became more ferocious. On one side, Emperor Qing and Yun Luan were already engaged in a fierce battle. On the other side, Xiao Chun could be said to be on the verge of death. The frost python behind him was indeed worthy of being a son of saint. Although it was very annoying in other aspects, its strength was not exaggerated at all. That kind of speed was all thanks to Xiao Sheng's help. Otherwise, Xiao Chun would not have been able to run more than 100 meters. Even if he used the tiger's stampede, he would not have been able to escape the frost python's pursuit. Xiao Sheng had also increased his speed to the maximum. Even so, the frost python was still closing in on him. The distance between them was shrinking. One of them was running wildly, while the other was chasing after him desperately. Seeing that the distance between them was getting closer and closer, the killing intent in the frost python's eyes grew stronger and stronger. It even shouted with a murderous intent, "Xiao Chun, you can't run away today. Die." The frost python did not care about anything else now. All it wanted was to kill Xiao Chun. However, just as it finished speaking, Xiao Chun, who was running wildly in front of it, suddenly stopped. He even turned around and looked at the frost python with a cold smile. "Kill me? Frost python, come and try if you dare." There was no fear in his eyes. At the same time, the aura on Xiao Chen's body weakened rapidly. Obviously, Xiao Sheng had returned the control of his body to Xiao Chun. Hearing this, a hint of suspicion flashed in the frost python's eyes. Xiao Chen's actions were too strange. Although it was suspicious in its heart, the frost python did not back down. "You have a sharp tongue. You have a sharp tongue. Xiao Chun, I'm really curious if your bones are as tough as your mouth. I may not be able to kill you here, but one day, I will definitely make you regret it. Xiao Chun, you better pray that you don't fall into my hands one day. Otherwise, I will definitely let you know what true regret is." Facing Xiao Chun, who was not afraid at all and was even smiling, the frost python finally realized that something was wrong. Of course, Xiao Chun also felt it, but it was too late to realize that something was wrong. Facing the frost python, Xiao Chun dared to stop. There was only one possibility, and that was that he had arrived at the ambush place of the Black Chain Formation. Now, as the frost python stepped on the Black Chain Formation, the smile on Xiao Chen's face grew wider. For some reason, the frost python felt a sense of fear in the face of Xiao Chen's smile. Just as the frost python was getting more and more afraid, Xiao Chen's hands began to form a seal. With the frost python as the center, a formation with a diameter of more than 10 meters finally broke out of the ground. Seeing this, the frost python felt cold sweat on its back. It turned out that Xiao Chun had set up a formation here. Moreover, from the aura of this formation, it was obviously not an ordinary formation. At least, the frost python felt danger. Damn it! Cursing, the frost python did not dare to hesitate. It wanted to retreat and escape from the range of the formation. However, it was too late. Just as the frost python was about to move, black chains formed by the power of the formation shot out from the formation and shot towards the frost python like lightning. Facing the attack of these black chains, the frost python was able to resist for a while. However, in just a moment, the frost python's right arm was locked by one of the chains. In just a moment, the frost python was firmly locked by the other chains and dragged back to the center of the formation. The frost python was tightly locked by the black chains. No matter how the frost python struggled, the black chains did not show any signs of breaking. Don't waste your efforts. Do you think you can break free from my black chain formation? Looking at the struggling frost python, Xiao Chun finally heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 792. After successfully trapping the frost python, Xiao Chun finally heaved a sigh of relief. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the frost python struggled and said angrily, "Do you think you could trap me with this stupid formation? Xiao Chun, you are too naive." Xiao Chun knew that the black chain formation could not trap the frost python forever. Hearing this, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "Of course I know. I never thought of trapping you forever. I just need to trap you for a while. All right, you can slowly struggle here. I'll leave first." With that, Xiao Chun left without hesitation and went straight to where Qin Shi and the rest were. Now that the frost python was trapped and Yun Wan was fighting with Emperor Qing, what Xiao Chun and the rest had to do was to gather their forces and get rid of the other disciples of the Heavenly Saints sect and Sacredine sect. That way, they would be able to secure victory in one fell swoop. Seeing that Xiao Chun chose to leave after saying those words, the frost python's face turned extremely gloomy. Soon, the frost python realized the seriousness of the matter and guessed Xiao Chen's intention. Yin Wan was definitely in danger now that it was trapped. If it was not wrong, Emperor Qing had probably already attacked Yin Wan. Now that Xiao Chun had left, it was obvious that he was going to encircle the others. Frost Python was trapped alone, causing the entire situation to turn around. It could be said that a slight move in one part would affect the whole situation. Thinking of this, Frost Python struggled even more intensely, wanting to break the black chain formation as soon as possible. Unfortunately, the black chain formation could not be broken in a short period of time. The Frost Python was furious, but there was nothing it could do now. If it could not break the black chain formation, there was nothing it could do. No one cared about the Frost Python anymore. At this moment, Xiao Chun was rushing straight to where Qin Shi and the rest were. It was not difficult to find Qin Shi and the rest. He just needed to follow the spiritual energy light pillar. After running for a while, Xiao Chun found Qin Shi and the rest. From afar, Xiao Chun saw that Qin Shi and the rest were fighting fiercely with the disciples of the Heavenly Saint sect. Although the Heavenly Saint sect disciples were few in number, they were led by Yin Ci, the saintest-to-be. At this moment, Yin Ci was fighting Qin Shi and Luo Dawei by herself. Seeing this scene, Xiao Chun did not hesitate and immediately drew his black dragon sword. In a flash, he slashed his sword. As the sword slashed through the air, Yin Ci, who was in the middle of a fierce battle, suddenly felt an extreme threat. She did not dare to hesitate and immediately chose to retreat. It was this unhesitating retreat that allowed Yin Ci to narrowly dodge Xiao Chen's sword. The sword left a long sword mark on the ground. At the same time, Xiao Chun appeared in front of Yin Ci. Looking at Yin Ci, Xiao Chun did not say anything. This was because Qin Shi, who was beside him, called out softly, "Husband." Knowing what Qin Shi meant, Xiao Chun responded with a smile. He then looked at Yin Ci and said, "Do it yourself. No one will die in this soul seal sacred array anyway." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Yin Ci fell silent. After a moment, Yin Ci took a deep breath and said, "Giving up without a fight is not the style of our Heavenly Saint sect." As the saintest-to-be of the Heavenly Saint sect, Yin Ci did not choose to give up without a fight. Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded silently. Then he said to Qin Shi and Luo Dawei, You two go deal with the other two. Leave her to me." Hearing this, Qin Shiru and Luo Dawei both nodded. Then, they attacked the other two disciples. Facing the siege of Luo Dawei and the others, the two disciples of the Heavenly Saints sect, naturally, could not do anything. Now, as long as they got rid of Yin Ci, the Heavenly Saints sect would have nothing to worry about. Looking at Yin Ci, Xiao Chan said indifferently, "Actually, I don't want to fight you." Hearing this, Yin Ci replied, "Is it because of junior sister Qin?" "That's right." Shuru said that you are friends, Xiao Chen said. Yin Ci was not a threat to Xiao Chen. In fact, it was not impossible for him to let her go. After all, Xiao Chen planned to give a share to the Heavenly Saint sect. Of course, this was entirely because of Qin Shiru. The spiritual pool in the 100 Spirits realm was divided equally between the three sections. This was the consensus that Xiao Chen and the Heavenly Saint sect had reached at the beginning. Therefore, it was not a problem to let Yin Ci go. Because of this, Xiao Chen let out a breath of turbid air. Then, he said indifferently, "Follow me and don't do anything strange. I can let you go." In the end, he decided to let Yin Ci stay for the time being. First of all, she could not change anything. Second, she was friends with Qin Shiru. Moreover, if he wanted to take Yin Ci down now, Xiao Chen had to rely on Xiao Sheng's power. Since he could avoid a battle, why not? After all, Xiao Sheng's power should not be used too much. Moreover, Xiao Chen did not want to rely on Xiao Sheng for everything. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Yin Ci fell silent. It was not until the two disciples of the Heavenly Saint sect were defeated by Luo Dawei and the others that Yin Ci nodded helplessly. "Okay, I will follow you and will not do anything unnecessary." Now that she was alone, Yin Ci chose to compromise. There was no other way. The situation was stronger than her. Hearing this, Xiao Chen nodded. He did not fight with Yin Ci and let her stay. Then, Xiao Chen led the group to where Zhao Hufeng was. As for the remaining spiritual pawns of the Heavenly Saint sect, Xiao Chen did not take any more of them. After all, they would be given to the Heavenly Saint sect in the future. Seeing that Xiao Chen did not take the spiritual pawns of the Heavenly Saint sect, Yin Ci quickly understood everything. She also knew why Xiao Chen was willing to let her stay. So this was the reason. Originally, he had planned to give a share to the Heavenly Saint sect. In this way, it did not matter whether he killed her or not. Moreover, since the Heavenly Saint sect could gain something, how could Yin Ci not be satisfied? She knew that she was not Xiao Chen's opponent. Now that she did not have to fight with Xiao Chen and could keep the spiritual pawns, Yin Ci was naturally satisfied. She rushed towards where Zhao Hufeng and the others were. At this time, Zhao Hufeng and the others were also fighting fiercely with the disciples of the Sacredine sect. Zhao Hufeng's opponent was the prospective saintess of the Sacredine sect. The two of them fought fiercely without rest. It was unknown how many moves they had exchanged, but they were still evenly matched. After fighting for a long time, the two of them were completely enraged. However, at this time, Xiao Chen and the others also successfully arrived. Without needing Xiao Chen to say anything, Luo Dawei and the other two immediately joined the battle. Cooperating with the disciples of the Sacredine sect, they quickly suppressed the people of the Sacredine sect. At this time, Xiao Chen also came to Zhao Hufeng's side. As for Qin Shiru and Yin Ci, the two women did not make any more moves because there was no need to. The Ancient Saints sect and the Sacred Sun sect together already had an overwhelming advantage over the Sacredine sect, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 793. The arrival of Xiao Chen and the people of the Ancient Saints sect allowed Zhao Hufeng and the others to heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, the disciples of the Saint Yin sect on the other side had their faces darkened. Since Xiao Chen and the people from the Ancient Sacred sect had already appeared here, there was no need to talk about the fate of the Heavenly Sacred sect. Looking at Yin Ci, a strange light flashed in the eyes of this quasi-saint maiden of the Sacredine sect. The other members of the Heavenly Saint sect had all disappeared, leaving only Yin Ci behind. What was going on? Xiao Chun didn't care about the change in expression of the holy insect's prospective holy maiden as he calmly said, "Do you still want to fight? You have no chance of winning." With the two sects joining forces, the sacred insect naturally had no chance of victory. Hearing this, the face of the prospective holy maiden of the sacred insect darkened as she said in a resolute tone, "Enough nonsense. Let's do it." As expected, they were all prospective holy sons and prospective holy daughters. Every single one of them was proud and arrogant. Seeing this, Xiao Chun and Zhao Hufeng naturally did not say anything. The battle erupted once again. This time, Xiao Chun didn't rely on Xiao Sheng's strength. After all, it was 2 against 1. With Zhao Hufeng as the main attacker, Xiao Chun only needed to cooperate with him, so there wasn't much pressure. Therefore, Xiao Chen's own strength was enough. It was 2 against 1, and Zhao Hufeng's strength wasn't any weaker than that of the holy insect's prospective holy maiden. Thus, there wasn't the slightest change in the outcome. In the end, Zhao Hufeng personally dealt with this prospective holy maiden. Her figure slowly dissipated, indicating that this prospective holy maiden of the sacred insect had also been eliminated and forcefully sent out of the marriage array. Following the defeat of their saintess-to-be, the morale of the other disciples of the sacred insect was greatly reduced. Not long after, they were eliminated by Luo Dawei and the others, as well as the disciples of the Sacred Sun sect. After eliminating the Sacred Insect, the disciples of the Heavenly Saint sect and Sacred Insect could be said to be completely annihilated. As for the Azure Emperor's side, there shouldn't be any problems. As such, only Han Python was left. The outcome was set. After the 2 consecutive battles, more than 4 hours had passed. Everyone's energy consumption was great. However, before they could breathe a sigh of relief, a powerful pressure suddenly descended from the sky. Everyone raised their heads and saw Han Python standing in the air. Red light flashing in his eyes, a pair of red blood python's eyes as he stared at Xiao Chun below. After spending more than 4 hours, the Han Python finally broke through the black chain array and rushed over without stopping. Seeing that the sacred insect was completely annihilated, one could imagine the fury in the Han Python's heart. It was as if he wanted to tear Xiao Chun apart, because all of this was caused by Xiao Chun. If not for Xiao Chun trapping him, how could the disciples of the sacred insect and the heavenly saint sect be eliminated? "Xiao Chun, you're good." Han Python sneered. He was so angry that he laughed. Zhao Hufeng and the rest didn't expect Han Python to appear at this time. Their faces changed drastically. Not to mention whether they were a match for Han Python, they had already exhausted too much of their energy. Helplessness flashed in Zhao Hufeng's eyes. He looked at Xiao Chun and said, "Brother Xiao, it seems that God disposes." Zhao Hufeng's words were filled with disappointment. Obviously, in his opinion, even if all of them attacked together, they wouldn't be a match for Han Python. After hearing Zhao Hufeng's words, Xiao Chun surprisingly didn't seem too nervous. Instead, he sat down on the ground and said with a smile on his face, "That's right. Brother Zhao, there's no need to worry. Someone will deal with him." Xiao Chun's words confused Zhao Hufeng. At the same time, when Han Python saw Xiao Chun sitting on the ground, he was also puzzled. However, he still sneered and said, "What? You want to give up now? But it's too late." Xiao Chun ignored Zhao Hufeng's words. Seeing that Zhao Hufeng still wanted to say something, he gestured for him to keep quiet and said with a smile, "Brother Zhao, don't say anything. Let's see the glory of our ancient saint sect's holy son." Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Zhao Hufeng didn't understand. However, almost as soon as Xiao Chun finished speaking, a green light flashed in the sky. Then, a green light flashed in front of everyone and went straight for Han Python. Han Python didn't dare to be careless in the face of the green light attack. He directly slapped out and successfully blocked the attack. At the same time, Emperor Qing, who was wearing an ancient robe, appeared in the sky in front of Han Python. His breath was a little chaotic and he was injured. Obviously, he had won the battle with Yun Luan, but he had paid a price for it. Seeing Emperor Qing, Zhao Hufeng finally understood what Xiao Chen meant. He looked at Xiao Chen strangely. Meanwhile, Xiao Chun was looking at Emperor Qing in the sky with a relaxed expression. He was still domineering and arrogant. Facing Emperor Qing, Han Python's face darkened. Emperor Qing, you're already injured. Do you still want to stop me? Han Python didn't know why, but he was a little afraid of Emperor Qing. Hearing Han Python's words, Emperor Qing smiled indifferently and said, "It's enough to take care of you." As soon as he finished speaking, Emperor Qing made his move. He stretched out his hand, and violent green flames shot up into the sky from his body. The green flames looked as if they were going to burn the world, and people could not help but look at them. At the same time, the green flames continued to gather together. Soon, a fireball appeared above Emperor Qing's palm. The fireball was huge, like the sun, and Emperor Qing gently held it in his hand. Azure, sacred flame. The frost python's expression darkened as he looked at the azure fireball in the Cyan Emperor's hand and muttered. Green flame, sacred fire was Emperor Qing's famous skill. It could also be said to be Emperor Qing's symbol. Facing Han Python's change of expression, Emperor Qing said indifferently, "Green flame emperor." As he spoke, he casually tossed a huge fireball towards the frost python. The battle between the two saints was extremely terrifying. Even though Emperor Qing was already injured, he still displayed an insufferably arrogant demeanor in the face of the frost python. Looking at the two people fighting fiercely in the sky, the Azure Emperor was wrapped in green flames, while the frost python was constantly emitting black gas. This black gas was called the Black Fog Sky, and it was also extremely terrifying. However, compared to the azure flame, sacred fire of the Azure Emperor, the Black Fog Sky was obviously at a disadvantage. Looking at the battle between the two saints, Zhao Hufeng finally understood why Xiao Chun was so fearless. At the same time, his fear of Emperor Qing skyrocketed. Looking at Emperor Qing, who was standing proudly in the sky like an emperor, Zhao Hufeng couldn't help but say, "What about the Emperor Qing?" Emperor Qing, the saint of the ancient saints sect. Emperor Qing's strength shocked Zhao Hufeng. With the appearance of Emperor Qing, people were no longer nervous. Instead, they quietly looked at the second saint of the ancient saints sect, Emperor Qing, begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. If you want to talk about Swordmaster of 8 Desolation with more like-minded people, follow me on WeChat. Talk about life, find friends. Chapter 794. Although Emperor Qing was not afraid of fighting Frost Python while he was injured, he was not in a good condition. Therefore, after a fierce battle, Emperor Qing gradually showed signs of fatigue. Fighting two saints and saintesses consecutively was indeed too stressful. Frost Python sneered when he sensed Emperor Qing's exhaustion. Emperor Qing, you are too arrogant. You have already fought with Yun Luan, and now you want to fight with me? Do you really think you are invincible? Frost Python knew that he would not be Emperor Qing's opponent if he was in his best condition. However, Emperor Qing was already exhausted and was like an arrow at the end of its flight. Facing Frost Python's sneer, Emperor Qing said indifferently, "I don't know if I am invincible, but I am more than enough to deal with you." After he finished speaking, the azure sacred fire around Emperor Qing suddenly surged. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Emperor Qing shouted coldly, "Azure annihilation." Along with this cold shout, the green flames suddenly exploded, instantly enveloping the Azure Supreme, the Arch, and the Frost Python. From afar, it looked like a green sun. Azure annihilation was Emperor Qing's killer move. Frost Python's expression changed completely when he was enveloped by the azure flame. He said in disbelief, "Emperor Qing, are you crazy? Do you want to die together?" "Haha, so what if I die together? Once I am done with you, everything will be settled." Emperor Qing laughed loudly when he heard Frost Python's exclamation. Emperor Qing did not have any more energy to defeat Frost Python, so he chose to die together with it without hesitation. Under the cover of the green flame sacred fire, Emperor Qing and Frost Python's figures began to slowly dissipate. Not long after, the two of them disappeared from the sky one after another. At the last moment, Frost Python's heart was filled with unwillingness, but it was useless. Emperor Qing and Frost Python disappeared at the same time. This year's 100 Spirits pool battle came to a successful end. Next, it was time to divide the spiritual pools. According to what was said before, the Sacredine clan would be eliminated directly, while the Ancient Sacred Clan, Sun Sacred Clan, and Sky Sacred Clan would share the 100 spiritual pools equally. That was his original plan, but in the end, Qin Shuru proposed that only 20 spiritual pawns would be enough. After all, the Heavenly Saints sect did not contribute much and could be regarded as an enemy. If the spiritual pawns were divided equally, the disciples of the Sun Saint sect would definitely be unhappy. Moreover, Qin Shuru knew very well that if it were not for him, the Heavenly Saint sect would not even get a single strand of hair. Thus, they would not be qualified to divide the spiritual pawns equally. At Qin Shuru's request, the Heavenly Saint sect received 20 spiritual pools, while the Ancient Saint sect and Sun Saint sect each received 40 spiritual pools. This kind of harvest was indeed considerable, so Zhao Hufeng and the others were all smiles. Just as the battle for the 100 spiritual pool came to an end, on the other side of the Ancient Sacred Clan, Saint Qingjue's expression was very ugly. He walked all the way to the cave residence in the deepest part of the Ancient Sacred Clan. This cave residence could be said to be the highest standard and also the most mysterious cave residence in the Ancient Sacred Clan. The owner of this cave residence was the old ancestor of the Ancient Sacred Clan, Randang Kozii. Saint Qingjue came personally for the matter of the Sacredine clan. Some time ago, Xiao Chun captured the saintess of the Sacredine clan, Mu Yao, and several disciples of the Sacredine clan. Originally, according to the usual practice, the two clans should have negotiated, and then the Sacredine clan would compensate and the Ancient Sacred Clan would naturally release them. This was originally a very simple matter and had happened many times in the past. Both the Ancient Sacred Clan and the Sacredine clan knew how to deal with it. However, this time, things suddenly became a little strange. Saint Qingjue was in charge of negotiating with the Sacredine clan and had already sent someone to pass the news to the Sacredine clan. He originally thought that the Sacredine clan would send someone over soon, but after such a long time, there was no reply from the Sacredine clan at all. It was as if they didn't know about this matter at all. This was very strange. One had to know that Mu Yao was the saintess of the Sacredine clan. There was no reason for the Sacredine clan to abandon her. It was because of this that Saint Qingjue sent another message to the Sacredine clan a few days ago. This time, there was finally a reply from the Sacredine clan. However, this reply made Saint Qingjue even more confused. If you want to kill, then kill. It was very simple. If you want to kill, then kill. This was the Sacredine clan's reply. There was no hesitation at all. The Sacredine clan's attitude was very unyielding, and they didn't care about the life and death of Mu Yao and the other disciples. After receiving this reply, Saint Qingjue was naturally furious in his heart. However, he was more puzzled because the Sacredine clan's actions were indeed a little too strange. Although he was puzzled in his heart, Saint Qingjue also knew that if he killed Mu Yao, things might get out of hand. Therefore, he could only come and ask for his master's opinion. As a disciple, Saint Qingjue naturally entered Randang Kozii's cave without any obstruction. The cave of Randang Kozii was very big, almost equivalent to a small world. There were mountains and rivers, and the environment was very beautiful. On the peak of a mountain surrounded by clouds, Saint Qingjue saw his master, Randang Kozii. There was only a single praying mat on the peak of the mountain, and Randang Kozii was sitting cross-legged on it with his eyes closed. His white hair fluttered in the wind, giving people a feeling of immortality. It wasn't appropriate to call Randang Kozii an old man, because apart from his white hair, Randang Kozii's skin didn't have any wrinkles and was as smooth as a baby's. Therefore, Randang Kozii was more like a young man with white hair. He looked young, but at the same time, He gave off an aged vibe. It was especially so when he opened his eyes. His pair of turbid eyes seemed as though they could see through everything in the world. Randang Cozy Eye gazed at Saint Qingjue and said unhurriedly, "What's the matter, Master, about the Sacredine clan?" Facing Randang Cozy Eye's question, Saint Qingjue recounted the matter truthfully. Ancient Saint Ronding's expression didn't change at all when he heard Saint Qingjue's words. He was still as calm as an ancient well. He sighed softly and said, "What will come will come. That woman still can't let go of what happened back then. Forget it. Let's cripple Mu Yao's cultivation and let her go." Ancient Saint Randang sighed softly, as if he knew something. Hearing this, Saint Qingju nodded respectfully in response. Yes, he hadn't killed Mu Yao and the others, but he had crippled their cultivations. It wasn't just Mu Yao. Even the two half-saint experts who had followed Mu Yao had their cultivations crippled. After cultivating for several hundred years, they were all crippled in a single day. According to ancient Saint Randang, Saint Qingju had sent Mu Yao and the others away from the ancient sacred sect, settling them in a village that was isolated from the rest of the world. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. If you want to chat about Swordmaster of 8 Desolation with more like-minded people, follow excellent reading literature on WeChat. Chat about life, find confidence. Chapter 795. Mu Yao and the others have been abandoned by the Sacredine sect and have become cripples. Without their cultivation, they were no more than ordinary people. In just a few decades, they would turn into a pile of dirt. Therefore, the moment their cultivation was crippled, Mu Yao and the others' fate had already been decided. They would live out their lives peacefully like ordinary people. This was their fate. As for the woman that Randang Cozy Eye had mentioned earlier, he was naturally referring to the ancestor of the Sacredine sect. Randang Cozy Eye did not mention anything about what had happened back then, so Saint Qingju naturally did not know. Now, in the entire Tiana continent, there were only 1 or 2 old monsters like Randang Cozy Eye apart from the ancestors of the 4 sacred sects. Adding them up, they could be counted on one hand. Of course, Xiao Chun did not know about this. 5 days had passed, and the Soul Seal Holy Array had disappeared, indicating the official end of this 100 spirit world battle. The Heavenly Sacred Sect obtained 20 spiritual pools. The Ancient Sacred Sect and Sacred Sun Sect obtained 40 spiritual pools each. As for the Sacredine Sect, they did not obtain a single spiritual pool. This was definitely the first time this had happened since the 100 Spirit World appeared. After all, no matter how miserable the previous 100 Spirit World battle was, there had never been a sacred sect that did not obtain a single spiritual pool. What was surprising was that the saint from the Sacredine sect didn't seem to care too much about such an outcome, nor did he show any signs of getting angry. He only gave Xiao Chun a deep look before leaving with the rest of the Sacredine sect. The behavior of the saint of the Sacredine sect was a little strange, but no one took it seriously. After dividing the spiritual pools, the 3 sacred sects also left one after another. However, before leaving, Xiao Chun told Qin Shiru that he would be in seclusion for 2 years and promised Qin Shiru that he would return to the Heavenly Sacred Sect to look for her after 2 years. Originally, Qin Shiru wanted to follow Xiao Chun to the Ancient Sacred Sect. After all, they had been separated for so long, Qin Shiru naturally did not want to be separated from Xiao Chun again. However, Xiao Chun was going to be in seclusion. If Qin Shiru followed him to the Ancient Sacred Sect, it would obviously not be beneficial to her cultivation. Moreover, it was uncertain whether Qin Shiru's master, the ancestor of the Heavenly Sacred Sect, would agree to it. Therefore, Xiao Chun did not let Qin Shiru follow him. Instead, he asked her to return to the Heavenly Sacred Sect first and cultivate with the ancestor of the Heavenly Sacred Sect. When he was done with his seclusion, he would return to the Heavenly Sacred Sect to look for her. Xiao Chun was not worried about Qin Shiru staying in the Heavenly Sacred Sect. Of course, this was also because of Xiao Shang's guarantee. Although Xiao Shang did not say much, He clearly told Xiao Chun that cultivating in the heavenly sacred sect would only benefit Qin Shiru. Therefore, Xiao Chun did not worry about letting Qin Shiru go back. Xiao Chun naturally did not doubt Xiao Sheng's words. Therefore, under his persuasion and guarantee, Qin Shiru finally returned to the heavenly sacred sect. However, before leaving, Qin Shiru also said that if Xiao Chun did not come to the heavenly sacred sect in 2 years, she would come to the ancient sacred sect by herself. In this regard, Xiao Chun nodded helplessly. Although this little girl listened to him most of the time, she was also very stubborn in some matters. Once she had made up her mind, no one could persuade her to change her mind. Everyone said their goodbyes. The 100 Spirits world was fully open from today onwards. The disciples of the 3 sacred sects could enter the 100 Spirits world through the entrance. Of course, the disciples of each sect could only cultivate in the spiritual pool of their own sect. If they wanted to use the spiritual pool of the 100 Spirits world to cultivate, they had to pay a high price. Ordinary disciples simply could not afford it. Of course, this was not a problem for Xiao Chun at all. He had already exceeded the quota. According to the previous agreement, Xiao Chun had the right to use the spiritual pool for 2 years free of charge. Under the lead of Saint Huiyun, everyone returned to the ancient sacred sect. Before leaving, Saint Huiyun deliberately looked at Xiao Chun and said, "Boy, you should prepare yourself. When you want to enter the 100 Spirits world to cultivate, you can come and find me. Anyway, you have 2 years. I will make sure to remember." Saint Huiyun did not forget his previous promise. With that, he left. Xiao Chun and the others also bid farewell to Emperor Qing and returned to the first sacred palace. After this incident, Luo Dawei and Jiang Hua were completely convinced by Xiao Chun. They had already vaguely expressed their willingness to follow Xiao Chun. These 2 fellows were very wise to betray Du Yi and join Xiao Chun. After all, Xiao Chun was stronger than Du Yi. Luo Dawei and Jiang Hua had seen this with their own eyes. Moreover, Xiao Chun had Chun Yu as his backer. As such, how could Du Yi defeat Xiao Chun? It was also because Xiao Chun was not interested in these things. Otherwise, Du Yi would have been a lone commander. After returning to the first sacred palace, the 2 of them respectfully bowed to Xiao Chun and said, "Senior brother Xiao Chun, if you have any errands in the future, feel free to let us know. We'll also keep a certain distance from Du Yi. I hope senior brother can be magnanimous and let bygones be bygones." Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded and did not reject the 2 of them. He immediately asked Luo Dawei to report to the punishment hall tomorrow and join it. He was not afraid that Luo Dawei and Jiang Hua would betray him. Moreover, the punishment hall indeed needed a direct disciple. Luo Dawei naturally would not reject this and readily agreed. After bidding farewell to the 2 of them, Xiao Chun returned to his cave dwelling. However, before he could sit down, Isu came and said that Chun Yu wanted to see him. Hearing that Chun Yu wanted to see him again, Xiao Chun shook his head and refused without hesitation. No. Tell senior brother Chun Yu that I am injured and can't see him for the time being." Seeing that Chun Yu was joking, Xiao Chun could tell that Chun Yu was completely treating him like a fool. Ever since he entered the first sacred palace, he had been tricked by Chun Yu several times. No, absolutely no. No matter what, he would not see him. Xiao Chun's attitude was firm. Seeing this, Isu did not force him and quickly left. Xiao Chun also planned to rest for 2 days and then enter the 100 Spirit world to cultivate in seclusion for 2 years. This time, he would not trust Chun Yu no matter what. Even if the sky fell, he would wait until he came out of seclusion. This was something that Xiao Chun had already thought about. Just as Xiao Chun was relaxing, on the other side, Huiyun Seng came to Randang Cozy Eye's cave dwelling and stood respectfully in front of Randang Cozy Eye. If Xiao Chun was present, he would be very surprised because the 2 of them were talking about him. After briefly recounting Xiao Chun's performance in the 100 Spirit world, Huiyun Saint asked respectfully, "Master, do you want to see this little guy? You have been observing him for some time, right? Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. If you want to talk about Sword Master of 8 Desolation with more like-minded people, follow me on WeChat. talk about life, find a confidant. Chapter 796. In fact, Randang Cozy Eye had been secretly paying attention to Xiao Chun. At first, it was out of curiosity, but later on, he began to admire Xiao Chun more and more. After all, Xiao Chun had indeed created many miracles along the way. He had passed the pseudo-heaven stairway with a Tao Gate realm cultivation. Then, he had applied to become the prospective holy son of the sacred Yin sect. This time, he had led the disciples of the ancient sacred sect to achieve an absolutely impressive result in the 100-spirit realm. All these things had made Randang Cozy Eye more and more interested in Xiao Chun. At this time, hearing Hui Yun Saint's words, Randang Cozy Eye smiled slightly and said, "Isn't that kid going to the 100-spirit realm to cultivate in seclusion? Let's talk about it after he comes out." Knowing that Xiao Chun was going to the 100-spirit realm to cultivate in seclusion for 2 years, Randang Cozy Eye did not plan to see Xiao Chun now. Of course, this was only one of the reasons. There was another reason that Randang Cozy Eye did not mention. He had more important things to do in the next 2 years, so he could not divert his attention to other things for the time being. Hearing Randang Cozy Eye's words, Hui Yun Saint nodded respectfully. Upon seeing this, a palm-sized jade box appeared in Randang Cozy Eye's hand unknowingly. Randang Cozy Eye handed the jade box to Hui Yun Saint and said faintly, "Give this elixir to me. Give this Ling Yuan divine pill to Xiao Chun for me. With this pill, he should be able to break through to the Tao transformation realm." Hearing Randang Cozy Eye's words, Hui Yun Saint took the jade box respectfully. At the same time, he was very envious. The value of this elixir was inestimable. In other words, the value of one elixir was at least equal to 5 marrow cleansing saint elixirs. Although they were both saint-level elixirs, the elixir was far from being comparable to the marrow cleansing saint elixir. One elixir was enough to make those saints go crazy. But now, Randang Cozy Eye gave one to Xiao Chun so easily. This showed how much he valued Xiao Chun. For a moment, Hui Yun Saint was even more certain that Xiao Chun would be his junior brother in the future. Master had already made it clear that he wanted to accept Xiao Chun as his disciple. After handing the elixir saint, Hui Yun Saint, Randang Cozy Eye, he finally said, "Master, that kid seems to have cultivated a good body cultivation. The elixir seems to help him temper his physical body of the body. And elixir. Not only did he give one elixir saint, but he also asked Hui Yun Saint to prepare some elixir for Xiao Chun. Master valued Xiao Chun so much that even Hui Yun Saint, as a disciple, was envious. But envy was envy. Since Master had already spoken, Hui Yun Saint naturally nodded respectfully. He then left Randang Cozy Eye's cave and went to prepare the elixir for Xiao Chun. With Randang Cozy Eye's order, it was naturally not difficult to prepare some elixir. However, Hui Yun Saint was also considerate. He prepared 300 elixirs for Xiao Chun. What was even more exaggerated was that the lowest grade elixir was refined with the Saint Blood Wind Ghost's Wind Soul. Among them, there were even 3 elixirs refined with the Wind Ghost Saint King's Wind Soul. The grade was simply shocking. After preparing these things and resting for 2 days, Xiao Chun found Saint Hui Yun. Without any nonsense, after giving the elixir saint and 300 elixirs to Xiao Chun, Hui Yun Saint gave Xiao Chun a token. With this token, Xiao Chun could cultivate in the 100-spirit realm for free for 2 years. After receiving the token and the elixir, Xiao Chun's heart was filled with excitement. Needless to say, the elixir saint was definitely the best elixir in the Tiana continent. As for the 300 elixirs, Xiao Chun was overjoyed. With these 300 elixirs, Xiao Chun could already see the scene of the tempered battle body breaking through. The first level of the golden armor stage was already so terrifying. It was hard to imagine what it would be like if the tempered battle body broke through to the second level of the jade organ stage. At that time, he would be able to contend with the holy princes and holy maidens by relying on the strength of his body alone. Coupled with his cultivation, he might be able to attempt to become a holy prince. Feeling extremely excited, Shao Chun did not hesitate and entered the 100 Spirit Realm again. At this time, the 3 holy sects had already sent people to settle in the 100 Spirit Realm. Of course, the entire 100 Spirit Realm was divided into 3 major areas, each separated by a formation. In the area where the ancient holy sect was located, the rich spiritual chi emitted by the 40 spiritual pools was enough to make people feel relaxed and happy. 2 half-saint deacons were responsible for guarding this place. After showing the token to them, Shao Chun was assigned to the first spiritual pool. Of course, this was something that Hui Yun Saint had told him in advance. He had specially left it for Shao Chun. He went directly to the first spiritual pool and sat down. The spiritual pool submerged Shao Chun completely. After taking a deep breath, Shao Chun began his first seclusion after entering the ancient holy sect. When he cultivated in the spiritual pool again, the familiar feeling came back again. He remembered that the first time Shao Chun came into contact with a spiritual pool was in the 9-Cloud Palace. However, the spiritual pool in the 9-Cloud Palace could not be compared to the spiritual pool in the 100 Spirit Realm. The spiritual chi in the 100 Spirit Realm was pure and vast. Moreover, the spiritual pool in the 100 Spirit Realm did not need to be deliberately refined. The pure spiritual chi seemed to have a mind of its own as it entered his body through his pores. Then it automatically flowed along his meridians. Finally, it broke through the Tao gate and formed his own spiritual chi. The spiritual chi in his body and his cultivation began to rise at an unimaginable speed. This cultivation speed made Shao Chun want to laugh out loud. Of course, Shao Chun did not forget the spiritual origin saint pill that Randang Cozy Eye gave him. With the help of the spiritual origin saint pill, Shao Chun's cultivation speed increased again. It was as if he was flying. He could not remember how long it had been since he last experienced such a cultivation speed. It was simply amazing. With such a speed, Shao Chun was absolutely confident that he could reach the Tao Transformation Realm in 2 years. When he thought of reaching the Tao Transformation Realm, Shao Chun could not help but be overjoyed. Once his cultivation reached the Tao Transformation Realm, Shao Chun would no longer need to rely on Shao Shung's strength if he encountered other prospective holy sons and prospective holy daughters in the future. At that time, Shao Chun would be able to fight against those prospective holy sons and prospective holy daughters with his own strength. As for the holy sons and prospective holy daughters, there was still a gap. However, Shao Chun believed that he would be able to catch up very soon. Without wasting a second, Shao Chun crazily devoured the pure spiritual chi in the spiritual pool. While Shao Chun was immersed in cultivation, Shao Shung also gained a lot of benefits. The spiritual chi in the spiritual pool was also nourishing Shao Shung's remnant soul. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommended. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about Sword Master of 8 Desolation, follow me on WeChat. Chat about life. Find confidence. Chapter 797. Shao Chun was completely engrossed in his cultivation. Cultivating in the spiritual pool of the 100 Spirit Realm was simply a form of enjoyment. He could feel that his cultivation level was constantly rising. It was an indescribably wonderful feeling. Not only Shao Chun, but even Shao Shung was the same. Previously, in order to help Shao Chun, Shao Shung had consumed a lot of energy. However, at this time, under the nourishment of the pure spiritual energy, he was constantly recovering. Although the spirit pool was far inferior to the heavenly spirit pool and did not have any fundamental effect on Shao Shung's remnant soul, it still had some use in terms of nourishing and replenishing energy. While Shao Chun was cultivating in the 100 Spirit Realm, the outside world was as usual. At this time, Qin Shu, who was in the Heavenly Saints sect, was also brought to a secret cultivation realm in the Heavenly Saints sect, the Frost Realm, by his master, the ancestor of the Heavenly Saints sect, Ice Lotus Prime Saint. As an ice god physique, the Frost Realm was like a tiger that had grown wings for Qin Shiru's cultivation. Because of special reasons, the spiritual energy in the Frost Realm was filled with an extremely cold aura. Such spiritual energy was almost like a highly toxic existence for ordinary cultivators, not to mention refining it. Even the slightest carelessness in letting a trace of spiritual energy into the body would make people feel bone-chilling cold. However, it was this place that others avoided like the plague that seemed to have become a sacred cultivation ground for Qin Shiru. In the Frost Realm, Qin Shiru was like a fish in water. His cultivation was also rapidly rising. It had to be said that people with special physiques were worthy of being called heaven's favored ones. This was because they had a unique advantage over others. Not only Qin Shiru, but everyone else in the Heavenly Saints continent was also cultivating desperately. The former 10 favored ones had also made great progress. Although many of them may not have made as much progress as Shao Chun, compared to when they first arrived in the Sky River continent, everyone has indeed undergone a qualitative change. Time slowly passed, and in the blink of an eye, a year had passed. The world of martial artists was like this. In the eyes of an ordinary person, a year might be a long time, but in the eyes of a martial artist, time passed in the blink of an eye. Compared to the long lifespan of a martial artist, 1 year was nothing. During this year, nothing much happened. Everything was as usual. However, under this seemingly calm surface, there was an undercurrent surging. No one would have thought that a great war that would shake the entire Tiana continent would break out in a month's time. This great war shocked all the saints present. 1 month later, in the Sacredine sect, it was a morning that was no different from any other day. The disciples of the Sacredine sect were also cultivating as usual. However, under this seemingly normal morning, in the blink of an eye, a terrifying pressure descended from the sky above the Sacredine sect. This pressure was so strong that the disciples of the Sacredine sect couldn't resist it at all. Not to mention them, even the saints of the Sacredine sect felt their hair stand on end in the face of this pressure. Along with the appearance of this pressure, figures quickly appeared in the sky. They were all saints of the Sacredine sect. However, at this moment, as saints of the current era, their faces were incomparably solemn. There were even some who couldn't help but mutter to themselves. Judging from the strength of this pressure, it was clear that the people who came were definitely not ordinary saints. As expected, 3 figures soon appeared in the sky. Although there were only 3 people, it was enough to make the faces of the saints of the Sacredine sect change drastically. Randang Kozii, Prime Saint Ice Lotus, and Prime Saint Tianyang, the ancestor of the Sacred Sun sect. The 3 ancestors of the Sacred Een sect appeared at the same time. This kind of pressure wasn't something that ordinary people could withstand. Even the saints felt a chill run down their spines. Unlike Randang Kozii's sage-like demeanor, Prime Saint Tianyang had red hair and a sturdy body. He looked middle-aged and gave off an extremely violent feeling. As for Prime Saint Ice Lotus of the Sacred Sky sect, she had a cold temperament like an ice lotus. However, her face was extremely beautiful, and her temperament made people couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. She was like a noble and cold empress who controlled a part of the world. The 3 ancestors looked very young, but everyone knew that they were the oldest people in the Heavenly River continent. Each one of them had lived for at least several thousand years. Since the beginning, the ancestors stood above the saints of the Heavenly River continent. Facing the 3 ancestors, a saint of the Sacred Een sect gathered his courage and respectfully bowed. 3 ancestors, may I ask why you have come to my Sacred Een sect? Upon hearing the saint's words, Prime Saint Ice Lotus said indifferently, "Let Enu come out." The Enu that Prime Saint Ice Lotus spoke of was the ancestor of the Sacred Een sect, Prime Saint Enu. As Prime Saint Ice Lotus' voice fell, an equally terrifying aura soared from the depths of the Sacred Een sect. Then, in front of Prime Saint Ice Lotus and the other 2, an enchanting woman in a long black dress appeared in the sky. Her face was also young, and her appearance was exceptionally beautiful. She wasn't inferior to Prime Saint Ice Lotus in the slightest. However, compared to Prime Saint Ice Lotus, this woman in black gave off a completely different feeling. Prime Saint Ice Lotus was noble and cold, while the black-dressed woman was charming and seductive. However, amidst her charm, she constantly gave off a feeling of extreme danger. She was like a colorful and extremely beautiful poisonous snake. Although she was beautiful, her body was extremely venomous. This woman in black was naturally the ancestor of the sacred Een sect, Prime Saint Enu. As Prime Saint Enu appeared, all the saints of the sacred Een sect bowed in unison. Greetings, Ancestor Master. Prime Saint Enu ignored everyone's greetings. Her gaze was fixed on Prime Saint Ice Lotus from the beginning. Facing Prime Saint Enu, Prime Saint Ice Lotus' expression, which seemed to have been frozen for tens of thousands of years, changed a little. There was anger, hatred, and an unexpected sadness. It was as if meeting Prime Saint Enu had reminded her of some unpleasant memories or painful past. Of course, it wasn't just Prime Saint Ice Lotus. Prime Saint Enu also had the same expression in her eyes. As soon as the two women met, it was as if there was a grudge between them. The atmosphere instantly became heavy. Sensing the abnormal atmosphere, Prime Saint Tianyang twitched his mouth helplessly. He seemed to know about the enmity between the two women. He wasn't the only one. Randang Cozy Eye also knew about it. However, now wasn't the time to talk about it. Therefore, Randang Cozy Eye spoke one after another. Enu, what happened back then is already a foregone conclusion. Listen to me. Don't repeat the same mistake again. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 798. Randang Cozy Eye said with a complicated expression, as if he was trying to persuade Prime Saint Enu. However, upon hearing this, Prime Saint Enu sneered coldly. Wrong again and again? Huh, are you guys crying crocodile tears for a cat? That's not what you said back then. The resentment in her heart was not small. This could be heard from Prime Saint Enu's words. As Prime Saint Enu's voice fell, Prime Saint Ice Lotus also said indifferently. Back then, if it weren't for Brother Shung stopping you back then, would you still be standing here today? What a joke. Prime Saint Ice Lotus was obviously not as good-tempered as Randang Cozy Eye. Or rather, there was a deep grudge between her and Prime Saint Enu, so her words were filled with hostility. Upon hearing Prime Saint Ice Lotus's words, the originally calm Prime Saint Enu's face suddenly darkened. Her emotions clearly became agitated, especially when she heard the words Brother Shung. Prime Saint Enu yelled with killing intent. Shut up. If it weren't for you, bitch, how would Brother Shung and I have fallen to such a state? It's all because of you. I've said it before, I'll kill you one day. In fact, a surge of cold black chi unconsciously spread out from Prime Saint Enu's body. Sensing the sudden surge of Prime Saint Enu's aura, Prime Saint Ice Lotus was not to be outdone. A surge of extremely cold chi also spread out in an instant. The two peerless beauties, whose strength had reached the pinnacle, flew into a rage at this moment. As their eyes met, Prime Saint Ice Lotus snorted coldly. How dare you say the words Brother Shung? Today, I'll destroy you. As soon as her words fell, Prime Saint Ice Lotus took the initiative to attack. Seeing this, Prime Saint Enu also retaliated without showing any signs of weakness. The extremely cold chi and the terrifying black chi collided violently. The terrifying aftershock immediately destroyed more than half of the Saint En sect below. The might of a battle between the old Masters of Glory sect was clearly not something that these disciples could hope to defend against. For a moment, tragic cries rang out from all over Saint En sect. With just a single move, there were quite a number of disciples who were caught in the crossfire. When they saw this scene, the saints of the sacred En sect all retreated at the first possible moment. Although they were all saints, they didn't have the qualifications to participate in a battle between ancestors. After retreating far away, a saint of the sacred En sect shouted, activate the sect protecting grand array. Without any hesitation, he chose to activate the sect protecting grand array. There was no other way. If he didn't activate the sect protecting grand array, the sacred insect would probably be destroyed by the two old ancestors. A black screen quickly rose from the ground of the sacred insect. In just a few breaths' time, the sacred insect was firmly protected within it. With the protection of the sect guarding array, the aftershocks of the battle between Prime Saint Inu and Prime Saint Ice Lotus were finally blocked outside. Even so, the saints of the sacred insect still felt a lingering fear as they watched the fierce battle in the sky. The two women fought fiercely as if there was a deep hatred between them. They didn't show any mercy. At the same time, Randang Cozy Eye and Prime Saint Heavenly Sun looked at each other and moved at the same time. They immediately rushed into the depths of the sacred insect. This was their real purpose in coming to the sacred insect. Seeing Randang Cozy Eye and Prime Saint Heavenly Sun rushing into the depths of the sacred insect, Prime Saint Inu sneered. It's too late to stop me now. There's no need for the Tiana continent to exist anymore. I must destroy it. You bitch. Brother Sheng should have killed you back then. Ancient Saint Ice Lotus's voice turned even colder when he heard Ancient Saint Inu's words. Haha, kill me. If it weren't for you, why would Brother Sheng abandon me? It's all because of you. Prime Saint Inu laughed loudly. Her laughter was filled with hatred. No one knew what happened back then except for the old ancestors. However, while the two women were fighting, Randang Cozy Eye and Prime Saint Heavenly Sun had already arrived at the deepest part of the sacred insect. No one knew when it started, but this place had become a forbidden area of the sacred insect. Except for a few people, no one else had come here, including the saints. No one knew what was inside. They only knew that there was a black palace here. The palace was huge, and just its height alone reached 100 meters. Without any hesitation, Randang Saint and Heavenly Sun Saint pushed open the door of the palace and entered in a flash. After entering the palace, what appeared in front of them was a door of light that constantly emitted a blood-red light. The door of light was huge, almost occupying the entire hall. Such a huge door of light gave people an indescribable feeling of shock just by looking at it. At the same time, a strong smell of blood was constantly emitted from the door of light. Seeing the door of light, Randang Cozy Eye's expression changed slightly, and he sighed sadly. As expected, this woman has really gone crazy. Unlike Randang Cozy Eye's sigh, a cold light flashed in Heavenly Sun Saint's eyes when he saw the door of light, and he cursed fiercely in a low voice. Obviously, both of them knew what the door of light was. After looking at each other, the two old ancestors attacked at the same time, intending to destroy the door of light as soon as possible. In fact, Randang Cozy Eye had guessed all this from the beginning when the sacred insect acted abnormally. And to explain all this, it was necessary to start from what happened back then, from what Prime Saint Inu and Prime Saint Ice Lotus had mentioned. Ever since that incident, ancient sage Inu had completely changed. At that time, she had said that she would destroy the heavenly river continent and make everyone regret their actions. Sure enough, Prime Saint Inu had done so. She had completely gone crazy, and the one who had caused all this was the Brother Sheng that the two women had mentioned. Looking at the appearance of the blood door in front of them, Randang Cozy Eye and Heavenly Sun Saint had already guessed that Prime Saint Inu had probably begun to arrange it hundreds of years ago. It should be known that it was extremely difficult to successfully construct the blood door. It was impossible to do so without hundreds of years. At this moment, the blood door was about to take shape. They had to stop all this, or the consequences would be unimaginable. They attacked at the same time, without holding back. Two terrifying forces soared into the sky from the palace and blasted toward the blood door. The two patriarchs attacked at the same time. Even a saint would die upon contact with such power. However, what the two didn't expect was that in the face of their full-strength attack, the blood door suddenly burst out with a strong blood-red light. The light formed a faint blood-red protective shield in front of the blood door. It seemed as thin as a piece of paper, but it successfully blocked the full-strength attack of the two old ancestors, begging to be collected, begging to be recommended. Chapter 799. Randang, Cozy Eye, and Prime, Saint Heavenly Sun furrowed their brows when they saw that the seemingly ordinary blood door had successfully blocked the all-out attack of the two patriarchs. At the same time, the entire palace collapsed the moment the blood-red light curtain appeared, and a blood-red eye that resembled the sun appeared above the blood door. The huge palace collapsed, and this scene naturally attracted the attention of the disciples of the Sacredine sect. This huge palace had existed in the Sacredine sect for a very long time. However, it had never been open to the outside world. Therefore, the disciples of the Sacredine sect had always been curious about this huge palace, and at the same time, they had a lot of guesses about it. Now that the huge palace had collapsed, the disciples of the Sacredine sect naturally wanted to see with their own eyes what exactly was hidden in this huge palace that had never been opened. Under the gazes of countless pairs of eyes, the blood door that was hidden in the huge palace finally appeared before everyone's eyes. At the same time, the blood-red eye that had just appeared was hanging above the blood door like the sun. They had never seen such a huge door before. Along with the appearance of the blood door and the blood-red eye, an extremely strong smell of blood constantly spread out. Many disciples were so shocked that they were rooted to the spot, unable to move. While the disciples were still in shock, the blood-red eye above the blood door suddenly shot out a beam of blood-red light that shot straight towards Randang, Cozy Eye, and Prime, Saint Heavenly Sunday. In the face of this blood-red light, Randang, Cozy Eye, and Prime, Saint Heavenly Sun didn't dare to be careless. They knew very well how powerful this light was. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that even a saint wouldn't be able to last long under the attack of this light. This was a power that was enough to kill a saint. Both of them displayed their respective abilities. Scriptures appeared around Randang, Cozy Eye and floated around Randang, Cozy Eye in the air. At the same time, purple flames erupted from Prime, Saint Heavenly Sun's body. The flames soared to the sky and also firmly protected Prime, Saint Heavenly Sunday. Both of them didn't have the slightest bit of carelessness as they defended with all their might. At the same time, the blood-red light ruthlessly bombarded their bodies without the slightest sound. However, under the collision of the two, a huge hole was silently opened in the Sacredine sect's great sect guardian array. The power of this attack was enough to break the Sacredine sect's great sect guardian array. Not to mention the ordinary disciples of the Sacredine sect. Even the elders of the Sacredine sect were dumbfounded by this power. After more than 100 breaths of time, the blood-red light slowly dissipated. Then, Randang, Cozy Eye, and Prime, Saint Heavenly Sun's figures appeared in the air once again. On the surface, the two of them didn't seem to have suffered any injuries. However, only they knew that in order to resist the attack of the blood-red light, they had consumed a lot of their strength. Even with their strength, Randang, Cozy Eye, and Prime, Saint Heavenly Sun couldn't withstand this attack for too long. The light in Randang, Cozy Eye's eyes dimmed a little. He sighed helplessly. We were still a step too late. It was apparent that Randang, Cozy Eye knew what the blood door and blood eye represented. The appearance of the blood eye made Randang, Cozy Eye feel rather helpless. They were still a step too late. Since the blood eye had appeared, it was probably impossible to destroy the blood door. Even if the three patriarchs joined forces, it would still be difficult to succeed. Moreover, Prime Saint Enu was on the side. As soon as Randang, Cozy Eye's voice fell, Prime Saint Enu's voice sounded below the blood eye. Prime Saint Ice Lotus also came to Randang, Cozy Eye and Prime Saint Heavenly Sun's side. Prime Saint Ice Lotus's expression turned colder as she looked at the blood eye. "Bitch, you're really crazy," Prime Saint Ice Lotus said coldly as she looked at Prime Saint Enu. Upon hearing Prime Saint Ice Lotus's words, Prime Saint Enu revealed a maniacal smile. Crazy? Back then, I already said that I would make you regret it. Both sides did not make any further moves. With the appearance of the Blood Eye, Randang Cozy Eye and the other two patriarchs had already made their moves. This was because the Blood Door could be said to be almost fully formed. It was already impossible to destroy it. Randang Cozy Eye looked at Prime Saint Enu and said indifferently, Enu, have you ever thought about what he would do if he knew what you did? The him that ancient Saint Dipamkara was referring to was naturally the brother Shung that ancient Saint Enu and ancient Saint Ice Lotus were talking about. Ancient Saint Enu was silent for a moment when she heard ancient Saint Dipamkara's words. A look of confusion flashed across her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by hatred. He had already made his choice back then. So what if he knows? He let me down first. I will make him regret his decision back then. Completely consumed by hatred, Randang Cozy Eye did not say anything in the face of Prime Saint Enu. He replied indifferently, In that case, let's meet on the battlefield. Enu, I hope you won't regret what you have done today. After saying that, Randang Cozy Eye nodded slightly to Prime Saint Ice Lotus and Prime Saint Tianyang, and the three of them disappeared at the same time. The three old ancestors had descended upon the Sacred Een sect, and a huge battle had broken out. Although it hadn't been long, the news had spread quickly. At the same time, the strange Blood Door and Blood Eye of the Sacred Een sect had also been made known to the world. Although it was still unknown what the Blood Door and Blood Eye were, and what they were used for, judging from the appearance of Randang Cozy Eye and the other two old ancestors, the Blood Door and Blood, I should have a great connection. Otherwise, it would not have attracted the three old ancestors to come together. An oppressive atmosphere spread wildly across the Tiana continent. It had been many years since a battle between old ancestors had broken out. Now that the three old ancestors had personally come to the Sacred Een sect and had a great battle, did it mean that the peace of the Tiana continent would soon be disturbed? The world kept guessing, but the three old ancestors did not explain it in the slightest. However, just a month after the incident, the ancient Sacred Sect, Sacred Sun Sect, and Sacred Sky Sect, the three divine sects, unexpectedly announced the opening of their heritage inheritance. As soon as the news came out, it instantly caused a sensation in the entire Tiana continent. What did the three divine sects mean by opening their heritage inheritance at the same time? It was certain that unless something big was about to happen, the three divine sects would never open their heritage inheritance because it was the foundation of their divine sects. Unless it was a matter of life and death, the heritage inheritance would never be opened. Not only was the Tianhe continent shocked, but even the saints of the three divine sects were completely shocked by the decision of their old ancestors. For a time, the people of the three divine sects were in a state of panic. The saints of the three divine sects also went to find their old ancestors, wanting to know what had happened. It was so serious that they had to open their heritage inheritance, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about Swordmaster of 8 Desolations, follow me on WeChat. Talk about life, find confidence. Chapter 800. It was indeed a shocking thing for the three great saint sects to open their heritage at the same time. What was a heritage? To put it bluntly, it was the heritage that a sect had accumulated over hundreds and thousands of years. These heritage were usually sealed in an independent space that no one could enter. In this space, not only were there all kinds of treasures that the three great saint sect had accumulated since their founding, but there were also various heritages left behind by past experts, including the former quasi-saints. Once the heritage that had been accumulated over thousands, or even tens of thousands of years was opened, it was no exaggeration to say that the energy within was enough to allow the three great saint sects to cultivate many experts in a very short period of time. It could be said that this was one of the true trump cards of the three great saint sects, the foundation of the sect. Now that the three great saint sects had announced the opening of their heritage at the same time, the meaning behind it was self-evident. Unless it was a matter of life and death, the three great saint sects would not use their heritage. In the outside world, the entire ancient saint sect was shaken. On this day, all the saints of the ancient saint sect were gathered together in the Saint Palace. This time, they didn't just send their projections over. They had come in their true bodies. It could be said that this was the first time in more than 100 years that all the saints of the ancient saint sect had gathered together in a real sense. Numerous saints were seated cross-legged on a dozen praying mats. Their figures were no longer floating in the air. However, every single one of them had a puzzled expression on their faces. Obviously, they were curious as to why the ancestor would suddenly announce the opening of the ancient saint sect foundation and inheritance. Everyone patiently waited for Randang Cozy Eye's arrival. After about half an hour, Randang Cozy Eye's figure appeared out of thin air on the highest futon that was originally empty. Seeing Randang Cozy Eye appear, all the saints saluted and called out, "Greetings, Ancestor Master." Nodding slightly, Randang Cozy Eye did not waste any time and went straight to the point. "Do you all want to know why I want to open the heritage?" His voice was indifferent. Hearing this, all the saints looked at each other. In the end, Bihu's saint was the first to speak. "Master, I do want to know the reason. After all, the heritage is the foundation of our ancient saint sect. It was left behind by the joint efforts of countless ancestors. There is an ancient saying that unless it is a matter of life and death, no one is allowed to open the heritage." Bihu's saint said what all the saints were thinking. Hearing this, Randang Cozy Eye nodded slightly, then exhaled a turbid breath. His originally turbid, his old eyes suddenly burst of light, and he said in a solemn tone, "The demon race is coming." The younger generation may not know the name of the demon race, but all the saints present knew a lot about the secrets of the Tiana continent, so they naturally had a certain understanding of the demon race. Unlike the Tianshan continent, the Tiana continent was not a closed continent, and it was naturally connected to the outside world. However, it was unknown if the Tiana continent was unlucky, but the continent closest to the Tiana continent was not controlled by humans, but by the demon race. It was called the Northern Demon Continent. The ancestors of the Tiana continent had once investigated the Northern Demon Continent. The demon race living in the Northern Demon Continent was completely different from humans. They were powerful, bloodthirsty, and had a strong desire to conquer. The only fortunate thing was that the Northern Demon Continent seemed to be completely trapped by a powerful force. The demon race inside could not leave at all. According to the research of the ancestors of the Tiana continent, they could only determine that this force was beyond the level of a quasi-sage and even beyond the power of a great saint. It was also because of the blockade of such a force that the Tiana continent and the Northern Demon Continent could live in peace. Now, the Blood Gate built by ancient Saint Ian Yu was no other than a spatial passage connecting to the Northern Demon Continent. Don't ask Randang Cozy Eye why he knew this. Not only did Randang Cozy Eye know this, but ancient Saint Ice Lotus, ancient Saint Tian Yang, and another old monster also knew this. This was because they had obtained this ancient book together, and the construction method of the Blood Gate was recorded in this ancient book. According to their speculation, this ancient book should have been left behind by the ancestors of the Tiana continent who had been to the Northern Demon Continent. They had studied the Northern Demon Continent thoroughly, and they also boldly speculated that with the help of external forces, they could open a spatial passage connecting to the Northern Demon Continent. At that time, the demon race of the Northern Demon Continent could directly appear in the Tiana continent through the spatial passage. At that time, everyone read this ancient book together, but in the end, because everyone felt that this ancient book was too dangerous, and if it fell into the hands of someone with bad intentions, it was likely to bring a devastating disaster to the Tiana continent. Therefore, under the insistence of Brother Sheng, they destroyed this ancient book with their own hands. However, ancient Saint Ian Yu had memorized the contents of the ancient book, and she had really built the Blood Gate. She was very clear about the consequences once the Blood Gate was successfully connected to the Northern Demon Continent. At that time, countless demons would descend on the Tianhe continent through the Blood Gate, and a life-and-death war would be inevitable. There was no need to hide things now. Randang Cozy Eye told everyone present what he knew. Hearing this, the faces of the saints became dignified. According to Randang Cozy Eye, this was no longer about the survival of the ancient saint sect, but the survival of the entire Tiana continent. Either they block the invasion of the demon race, or they'll be wiped out by the demon race. The whole holy temple fell into a strange silence, and no one spoke. The saints were very clear about what kind of bloody storm the Tiana continent was about to face, and what kind of tragic war it would be. The demon race was not comparable to the demon cultivators of the blood demon continent. To put it bluntly, the demon cultivators of the blood demon continent were the servants and lackeys of the demon race. They were originally humans, but because they longed for the power of the demon race, they practiced the demon race's techniques and were thus regarded as Xymois. Although these Xymois practiced the demon race's techniques, they were fundamentally still humans. But the demon race was different. They were born incomparably powerful, and their nature was murderous. Compared with the demon cultivators, the real demon race was the most terrifying. If the demon cultivators were compared to wolves, then the demon race was a fierce tiger. There was no comparison between the two. Now, do you know why I want to open the heritage? Seeing the silence of the saints, Randang Cozy Eye finally asked. Chapter 801. In terms of strength, the Sky River continent was naturally much stronger than the Heavenly Chin continent. There was no doubt about this. If the Sky River continent were to face the demonic cultivators of the Blood Demon continent, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that any of the great sage sects of the Sky River continent would be enough to defeat the demonic cultivators of the Blood Demon continent. However, this time, the Tiana continent was not facing the demonic cultivators of the Blood Demon continent, but the real demon clan. Those demonic cultivators respected the demon clan like gods. Randang Cozy Eye said faintly. Hearing this, the saints were silent for a long time, and finally nodded one after another. When the demon clan attacked, it was natural to open the heritage. However, the saints were not thinking about this now, but how to resist the invasion of the demon clan. It should be known that in this vast world, there were countless races. Although the human clan could be regarded as a large clan among the many races, they were still incomparably afraid of the demon clan. Among the countless races, the demon clan could be said to be a well-deserved carnivorous race. They were born to be cold-blooded, and they advocated strength. They were extremely fond of invading and killing other races. It could be said that the demon clan was one of the bloodiest and most dreaded races in this world. Could the Tiana continent withstand the attack of the demon clan? The saints were not sure. Seeing this, Randang Cozy Eye said without changing his expression, "Since things have come to this, we can only do our best." Compared to the saints, Randang Cozy Eye was obviously much calmer. Hearing this, the saints naturally had no objections. After a moment of silence, Randang Cozy Eye seemed to suddenly think of something. He looked at Saint Huiyun and asked, "How long until Shao Chun comes out of seclusion?" "Master, in less than 5 months, it will be a full 2 years," Saint Huiyun replied truthfully. In the 100 Spirit Realm, Shao Chun had been in closed-door cultivation for more than a year, and there were less than 5 months left to 2 years. Hearing Saint Huiyun's words, Ancient Saint Randang nodded slightly, and then said, "Then we'll activate the heritage inheritance in 5 months. Remember, leave a heritage inheritance for Shao Chun. That's the standard for the son of Saint." Naturally, the opening of the heritage would not be given to a single person. Even if it was given to a single person, that person would not be able to enjoy it. Even a saint would not be able to swallow the heritage of the ancient saint sect. They would definitely explode. Therefore, when the heritage of the ancient saint sect was opened, those outstanding disciples would be able to get a share of it. Needless to say, there were holy sons and prospective holy sons. There were also pro-disciples. Even the outstanding core disciples would be lucky enough to get their own heritage. Moreover, it wasn't just the disciples, the sage-to-be deacons, and even the saints present could benefit from it. After all, the purpose of opening the heritage was to raise the overall strength of the ancient saints sect to another level in a short period of time. However, even though many people would be able to benefit from it, there would naturally be a difference in the amount of benefits. For example, the chosen would definitely receive much more than the prospective chosen, and even more than the saints present. After all, the chosen had great potential, so it was understandable for them to receive more benefits from the inheritance. Xiaochen would come out in less than 5 months. According to Randang Cozy Eye's estimation, it would take at least 5 years for the Bloodgate to successfully connect to the northern Devil Continent. Therefore, Randang Cozy Eye immediately decided to open the Heritage Inheritance in 5 months. Hearing Randang Cozy Eye's words, the saints were a little surprised. Not only was the opening of the Heritage Inheritance deliberately accommodating Xiao Chun, but even the treatment of Xiao Chun had been forcibly raised to the level of Holy Son by Randang Cozy Eye. It should be known that although Xiao Chun's performance was amazing, Xiao Chun was still only a prospective Holy Son. On the surface, Xiao Chun was only the 5th prospective Holy Son. According to his status, Xiao Chun could only enjoy the Heritage Inheritance of a prospective Holy Son. However, Randang Cozy Eye had forcibly raised it to a higher level. This difference in level was not to be underestimated. The treatment of a Holy Son and a prospective Holy Son was worlds apart, especially in terms of the distribution of Heritage Inheritance. It was no exaggeration to say that the Heritage Inheritance of a Holy Son was at least 10 times that of a prospective Holy Son. This showed how big the difference was. They were secretly surprised, but since Randang Cozy Eye had spoken, the saints naturally didn't dare to say anything. However, they also faintly realized how much importance Randang Cozy Eye attached to Xiao Chun. As soon as he finished speaking, ancient sage Randang did not wait for the other sages to reply. He simply said those words and left. Don't spread the news of the demon race for the time being, to avoid causing chaos. There were still 5 years left, so Randang Cozy Eye did not intend to make the matter public for the time being. After all, the demon race's attack was likely to cause chaos in the Sky River continent, which was even worse. When the time was right, Randang Cozy Eye would naturally contact the other great ancestors to inform everyone. They began to secretly prepare for the attack of the demon race. Xiaochen naturally had no idea about this. In the 100 Spirit Realm, he had completely forgotten about the time. Unknowingly, Xiao Chun had spent a few more months in the 100 Spirit Realm. Now, there were only 3 months left before Xiao Chun came out of seclusion. On this day, Xiao Chun's aura, which had become extremely weak, suddenly fluctuated violently. At the same time, his cultivation began to become violent. This was a sign that he was about to make a breakthrough. After more than a year of cultivation, with the help of hundreds of spirit pools in the spirit world and the elixir of spirit origin, Xiao Chun's cultivation had reached the level of Tao Gate. Now that he was about to make a breakthrough, it was naturally a breakthrough of a major realm. Finally, it was time to break through to the Tao Gate realm. Xiao Chun held his breath and did not dare to be careless in the slightest. He began to rush to the Tao Gate realm with all his strength. The difficulty of breaking through a major realm could be imagined. He mobilized the spiritual power in his body and constantly attacked the barrier of breaking through to the Tao Gate realm. In more than a year, Xiao Chun's cultivation had undergone earth-shaking changes. Now, it was finally time for him to break through to the Tao Gate realm. Once Xiao Chun successfully broke through to the Tao Gate realm, his cultivation would successfully catch up with the other prospective saints and prospective saintesses. In this way, when facing the other prospective saints and prospective saintesses in the future, Xiao Chun would no longer need to rely on Xiao Sheng's strength. With his own strength, Xiao Chun could contend with them. After countless attempts and countless attacks, he could not remember how many times he had attacked. Finally, a muffled sound came from Xiao Chun's body. The barrier of the Tao Gate realm was successfully reopened. For a moment, Xiao Chun's aura began to surge crazily like a flood. At the same time, the spiritual power in the spirit pool also surged crazily into Xiao Chen's body. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 802. He had finally broken through to the Tao Transformation Realm. The so-called Tao Transformation Realm meant that one's understanding of the martial way had reached the Transformation Realm after reaching the Tao-seeking realm, attaining the Tao, and condensing the Tao Gate. After stepping into the Tao Transformation Realm, Xiao Qin's 8-edged Tao Gate had not only improved greatly, but his Tao Heart had also been successfully condensed at this moment. Condensing the Tao Heart was the hallmark of the Tao Transformation Realm. When the Tao Heart was formed, nothing could invade it. This was the Tao Transformation Realm. He could clearly feel that his thinking had improved by more than a level compared to before. Moreover, his understanding of the martial way had also deepened. His strength had improved in all aspects. Now, Xiao Qin was confident that if he met Mu Yao, Yin Si, and the others again, he would be able to achieve a complete victory even without Xiao Sheng's help. This was the improvement in his cultivation after breaking through to the Tao Transformation Realm. He couldn't help but feel secretly happy. However, at this moment, the Heavenly Way sword embryo, which had been silent for a long time, suddenly reacted. The Heavenly Way sword embryo hidden between his eyebrows emitted a dazzling golden light. Under the golden light, the shape of the Heavenly Way sword embryo slowly changed. Xiao Chun had no way of controlling the changes of the Heavenly Way sword embryo. Xiao Chun had asked Xiao Sheng before, but Xiao Sheng didn't know much about the Heavenly Way sword embryo. He only knew that the Heavenly Way sword embryo was one of the top special physiques in the world. Even Qin Shuru's Ice God physique and Gu Lingyao's Moon God physique were inferior to the Heavenly Way sword embryo. The Heaven's Path sword embryo was very powerful. Furthermore, unlike other special constitutions, the Heaven's Path sword embryo wasn't born with it. Instead, it was formed after birth. To put it bluntly, the Heaven's Path sword embryo seemed to have taken the initiative to recognize its master. Only the person it recognized could possess the Heaven's Path sword embryo. The golden light shrouded between Xiao Qin's eyebrows bloomed. It lasted for half a month before the golden light slowly dissipated. During this process, Xiao Chun could clearly sense an indescribable power from the embryo of the Heavenly Way sword. It constantly surged to every part of his body through his limbs. During this process, Xiao Chun clearly felt that half of his body was being modified by this inexplicable power. It was like a dusty sword that was constantly being hammered, gradually emitting a sharp aura. The Heavenly Path sword embryo was modifying his body as if it were a sword. Xiao Chun vaguely found that his body seemed to have become more compatible with the way of the sword under such modifications. It was as if his body was born for the sword. Not only that, but the last moment, Xiao Chun didn't do anything, but his sword intent had directly broken through from the profound realm to the small perfection realm. The breakthrough of sword intent made Xiao Chun even more overjoyed. At this moment, Xiao Chun once again looked inside his body. In between his eyebrows, Xiao Chun finally saw the Heavenly Way sword embryo that had completed its transformation. To Xiao Chen's surprise, the Heavenly Way sword embryo had actually turned into an egg. That's right, it was an egg. A round golden egg that was only the size of a fingernail. What does this mean? Have I regained my youth? Looking at the egg between his eyebrows, Xiao Chun was speechless. He didn't understand what this meant. At the same time, Xiao Sheng also guessed, boy, this shouldn't be a bad thing. I'm afraid that your Heavenly Way sword embryo is finally going to complete its transformation. Just like a butterfly, when it breaks out of its cocoon, boy, you and the Heavenly Way sword embryo will be considered as one. At that time, you will truly have a natal divine sword that belongs to you. Xiao Chen's words were also his own conjecture. All along, Xiao Chun had never stopped listening to the Heavenly Way sword embryo. After coming to the Tina continent, Xiao Chun didn't know how many swords Xiao Chun had fed to the Heavenly Way sword embryo. Because of this, from the beginning to the end, except for the Black Dragon Sword, Shao Chun didn't have any other spiritual weapons. All of them had been given to the Heavenly Way Sword Embryo. Now, with the breakthrough of his cultivation, the Heavenly Way Sword Embryo had finally changed again. Hearing Shao Shung's words, Shao Chun thought that this was the only way. He had been waiting for the Heavenly Way Sword Embryo to complete its final transformation and become a peerless divine sword that belonged to him. Now, it seemed that it wasn't too far away. Shao Chun could not help but feel excited at the thought of being able to summon the Heavenly Way Sword Embryo with just a thought if it completed its transformation and broke out of its cocoon. I just don't know how long it will take this time. I really hope that the Heavenly Way Sword Embryo can complete its transformation sooner. Unable to contain his excitement, Shao Chun secretly thought to himself. He didn't care about the Heavenly Way Sword Embryo anymore. There shouldn't be any more changes in the short term. However, it was worth mentioning that the transformation of the Heavenly Way Sword Embryo this time also gave Shao Chun a lot of benefits. First of all, his body had been inexplicably strengthened and was more compatible with the cultivation of the sword principle. Second, his sword essence had improved from the profound realm to the perfection realm. These two evolutions were very useful to Shao Chun. After that, he tried the soul slash again and found that he could still use it. Moreover, its power was much stronger than before. According to Shao Chun's estimation, even a Tao King realm expert would probably be injured by his soul slash if he was caught off guard. It could be said that the transformation of the Heavenly Way Sword Embryo didn't have the slightest impact on Shao Chun. In fact, it even gave him a lot of benefits. He secretly felt relieved. Next, he just had to wait patiently for the day when the Heavenly Way Sword Embryo broke out of its cocoon. Shao Chun stopped thinking about the Heavenly Way Sword Embryo and asked, "Ancestor, how long have I been in the 100 Spirit World?" Shao Chun had been immersed in his cultivation and didn't pay attention to the time. In response to Shao Chun's question, Shao Shung replied, "In less than 3 months, it will be 2 years. There's still more than 2 months left? Since that's the case, let's improve the tempered battle body. I wonder if the 300 elemental wind elixirs can improve the tempered battle body to the Jade Organ realm," Shao Chun thought to himself. With more than 2 months left, Shao Chun's cultivation would not be able to make any significant progress for the time being. Therefore, he planned to use the remaining time to cultivate the tempered battle body and stabilize his own realm. It was a rare opportunity to change the focus of his cultivation. Shao Chun naturally didn't want to waste any time. First, he used half a month to completely stabilize his cultivation at the beginner realm of the Tao transformation realm. However, if he wanted to achieve perfection, he would probably have to find a way to get a marrow cleansing elixir. Of course, he could only think of this after he came out of seclusion. After stabilizing his cultivation, Shao Chun took out the elemental wind elixir and began to cultivate the tempered battle body, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. If you want to talk about Sword Master of 8 Desolation with more like-minded people, follow excellent reading literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find confidence. Chapter 803. The benefits that the tempered battle physique brought to Shao Chun were beyond doubt, so Shao Chun had never slacked off on the cultivation of the tempered battle physique. However, the tempered battle physique, which was known as the #1 body refining technique in the Tiana continent, was also very troublesome. Unlike other techniques, blindly cultivating the tempered battle physique was almost useless. In order to make the tempered battle physique continue to progress, in addition to one's own efforts, one also needed the cooperation of countless treasures of heaven and earth. Both were indispensable. The tempered battle physique was like an insatiable bottomless pit. Shao Chun was only at the first level of the Golden Armor realm, but it was already extremely difficult for him to progress. Ordinary treasures of heaven and earth were almost useless. Only those specific and expensive treasures could have an effect on the cultivation of the tempered battle physique. It was no wonder that Xu Feng who was already in the quasi-sage realm, could only cultivate the tempered battle physique to the third level of the celestial body. It was not that Xu Feng's talent was not good enough, but that Xu Feng could not find any treasures of heaven and earth that could occasionally help the tempered battle physique break through. In other words, the resources available on the Tiana continent were not enough to let the tempered battle physique break through to the fourth level. Gathering the power of a continent was not enough to cultivate a technique. It could be seen that the consumption of the tempered battle physique in the later stages was simply astonishing. Even Xu Feng, who was a quasi-sage, had no way to break through to the fourth level. Now, Xiao Chan did not even need to think about it. Of course, the current Xiao Chan was still very far away from this step. Now, Xiao Chan seemed to have only broken through to the second level of the Jade Viscera realm. Moreover, even though Xu Feng had only cultivated to the third level of the celestial body back then, he was still hailed as a secondary saint with an invincible physical body. Therefore, there was no need to doubt the strength of the tempered battle physique. However, everything had two sides. When one obtained an invincible physical body, the effort one had to put in was naturally unimaginable to others. Xiao Chen wasn't in the mood to think about these distant questions. He refined the origin wind pills one by one. These origin wind pills were specially prepared for Xiao Chen by Saint Huiyin. Their high grade had made Xiao Chen secretly excited for a long time. One by one, Xiao Chen refined the elemental wind pills. With the help of these 300 elemental wind pills, Xiao Chen's tempered battle body also slowly improved, continuously charging towards the second layer of the Jade organ stage. Time slowly passed, and when Xiao Chan finished refining the last Yuan Feng pill, the 2-year period had just arrived. Finally, it was time to come out of seclusion. However, Xiao Chen's temper battle body was still stuck at the first layer, the golden armor realm. Although he did not break through, he had already reached the limit of the first layer. He was only one step away from breaking through to the second layer, the Jade organ stage. However, this one step almost made Xiao Chun curse out loud. The reason was very simple. If he wanted to break through to the second layer of the golden armor realm, relying on the origin wind pill was useless. The origin wind pill pushed the tempered battle body to the limit of the first layer of the golden armor realm. However, if he wanted to break through to the second layer, relying on the origin wind pill was not enough. He could only search for other higher grade body, refining treasures. Moreover, he had to find the heavenly fire origin. Xiao Chen had seen earth fire before. However, heavenly fire was an existence one level higher than earth fire. In the entire Tiana continent, there was only one place known to have heavenly fire origin, and that was the 100,000 Flames realm. Like the Wind Plains, it was known as one of the 4 great death zones of the Tiana continent. It was located in the Sacred Sun province. If he wanted to break through to the second layer of the Jade organ stage, Xiao Chun had to go to the Sacred Sun province and rely on the heavenly fire origin in the 100,000 Flames realm. He was extremely depressed, but there was nothing he could do. He reluctantly left the 100 Spirit realm and returned to the ancient sacred sect. After 2 years, Xiao Chun returned to the ancient sacred sect again. However, for an ancient sect like the ancient sacred sect that had existed for tens of thousands of years, 2 years was almost like a blink of an eye. Therefore, although Xiao Chun had been in seclusion for 2 years, when he returned to the ancient sacred sect, everything was as usual. There was not the slightest change. Finally, he came out of seclusion. After 2 years of seclusion, Xiao Chun seemed to have changed completely. His strength had increased by more than 1 level. At the same time, Xiao Sheng had also gained a lot of benefits in these 2 years. He planned to return to the first sacred palace first, and then go to the heavenly sacred sect. After all, he had promised Qin Shiru that he would go to the heavenly sacred sect to find her after he came out of seclusion. Moreover, there was something Xiao Sheng needed in the heavenly sacred sect. Therefore, he had to go to the heavenly sacred sect. After 2 years, on the way back to the first sacred palace, many disciples greeted Xiao Chun respectfully when they saw him. Senior brother, prospective holy son. In response to everyone's greetings, Xiao Chun nodded with a smile. On the way back to the first sacred palace, he directly went to his cave residence and asked Fei Mei and the others if anything had happened in the past 2 years. In the past 2 years, Fei Mei and the others had made a lot of progress. Each of their cultivation had broken through the Tao Vindication realm and reached the entry level of the Tao Vindication realm. Of course, Xiao Chen's help was indispensable. If Xiao Chen hadn't left a lot of cultivation resources for the 4 girls, they wouldn't have made such rapid progress. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the 4 girls were treated much better than the ordinary disciples of the ancient sacred sect when they followed Xiao Chun. They were almost as good as the core disciples. There weren't many changes in the past 2 years, but a major event had happened. The ancient sacred sect, heavenly sacred sect, and sun sacred sect had announced the opening of the heritage. The heritage of the ancient sacred sect had been decided and would be opened in half a month. In half a month, the heritage of the ancient sacred sect would be opened. Under the explanations of the 4 girls and Elder Master Bai, Xiao Chun also learned about the heritage. In the end, Xiao Chun sat on the main seat in the main hall, looked at Elder Master Bai, and whispered softly, "Will it only be opened in a moment of life and death? Now that the ancient sacred sect is going to open the heritage, could it be that something has happened in the Sky River continent? The heritage will only be opened in a moment of life and death." After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Elder Black replied with a solemn expression, "Young Master, Elder Master Bai, and I have also thought about this problem. But since the ancient sacred sect has decided to open the heritage, it's very likely that something big is about to happen. It's just that we don't know about it." Elder Black and Elder Master Bai guessed. In this regard, Xiao Chen also agreed. After all, the saints of the ancient sacred sect weren't lunatics. If nothing happened, how could they open the heritage that had been accumulated for thousands of years? However, no one knew what would happen. After all, the saints hadn't said anything. They discussed for a while, but in the end, there was no answer. Xiao Chun simply stopped thinking about it. Anyway, when the time came, the saints would definitely tell everyone. After learning that the heritage would be opened in half a month, time was of the essence. Xiao Chen planned to go to the heavenly sacred sect first to see Qin Shu, and then return to the ancient sacred sect to participate in the heritage. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 804. Xiao Chun had no idea why the saints of the ancient sacred sect would suddenly activate their legacy. He planned to pay a visit to the heavenly saints sect first before returning to accept the legacy. It was not just Elder Master Bai who had told him this. Even Xiao Sheng was shocked when he heard that the ancient sacred sect was actually going to activate their legacy. Although he had no idea what was going on, Xiao Sheng told Xiao Chun with certainty that it would be great news for Xiao Chun if he could obtain the legacy of the ancient sacred sect. The benefits he would receive would be far greater than 2 years of seclusion. After thousands of years of accumulation, the legacy of the ancient sacred sect was clearly not something the 100 Spirit world could compare to. As a result, Xiao Sheng told Xiao Chun that he could not miss out on this opportunity. Xiao Chun naturally did not doubt Xiao Sheng's words. Fortunately, there was still half a month before the legacy would be activated, which was enough time for Xiao Chun to head to the heavenly saint sect and return. In order to avoid wasting time, Xiao Chun left the ancient sacred sect early the next day. Naturally, there was no direct teleportation formation between the ancient sacred sect and the heavenly saint sect. As a result, Xiao Chun could only use the teleportation formation of the ancient sacred sect to head to a city called Tianfeng City on the heavenly saint plane. Tianfeng City was located on the edge of the heavenly saint plane. It was the closest city to the ancient sacred plane, and there was only one teleportation formation that connected to Tianfeng City on the ancient sacred plane. Only after arriving in Tianfeng City could Xiao Chun use another teleportation formation to head to the heavenly saint sect. He only brought Elder He and Elder Master Bai with him. The 3 of them set off. It did not take long for the 3 of them to arrive in Tianfeng City on the Heavenly Saint Plain. As a small city on the border of the Heaven Saints Plain, Tianfeng City was not large, but it was very special. This was because not only was there a stronghold of the ancient sacred sect in Shaochuan, there were many experts of the Heaven Saints sect stationed there as well. It could be said that Celestial Peak City was like a node between the ancient Saint Plain and the Heavenly Saints sect. Both sides occupied the city. Of course, according to the agreement between the two sects, anyone from the ancient Saint sect who wanted to head to the Heavenly Saint Plain had to register and be investigated in Celestial Peak City. Only with the permission of the Heavenly Saint sect could they venture deeper into the Heavenly Saint Plain. It was exactly because Celestial Peak City was so special that the Heavenly Saint sect had directly arranged for a saint to stand guard here. As for the ancient Hallowed sect, it merely had a single half-saint. Of course, this was not strange. After all, Celestial Peak City was within the Heavenly Saint Plain. How could the Heavenly Saint sect allow the ancient Hallowed sect to send a saint to stand guard here? They directly arrived at the stronghold of the ancient Hallowed sect in Celestial Peak City. As the candidate of the ancient Hallowed sect, the attendant in charge of Celestial Peak City naturally did not dare to be careless. After receiving the news, he personally welcomed them at the entrance. The middle-aged half-saint attendant took the initiative to greet Xiao Chun when he saw him walk over. "Greetings, candidate Xiao Chun. There's no need to be so courteous, sir. I'm heading to the Heavenly Saints sect, so I hope you can make the arrangements for me." Xiao Chun smiled. He naturally had to obtain the ancient Hallowed sect permission to head to the ancient Hallowed sect, so Xiao Chun waited patiently in Celestial Peak City. Fortunately, he did not have to wait for long. Perhaps the half-saint attendant of the ancient Hallowed sect was rather reliable. He only had to wait for a day before the Heavenly Saints sect sent a message. They allowed Xiao Chun to head to the City Lord's estate in Celestial Peak City to undergo an investigation. After passing, he could directly take the teleportation formation to the Heavenly Saints sect from Celestial Peak City. Upon receiving this news, Xiao Chun immediately went to the City Lord Mansion of Tianfeng City and met the saint of the Heavenly Saints sect who was guarding this place. Although it was called an investigation, it was actually nothing much. They just wanted to ask about Xiao Chun's intentions and confirm his identity. Xiao Chun did not hide his intentions and directly stated them. The saint of the Heavenly Saints sect was slightly stunned when he heard that Xiao Chun had come to find Qin Shu, but he did not say anything. In less than an hour, the Heavenly Saints sect replied and agreed to allow Xiao Chun to go to the Heavenly Saints sect. However, he could only go alone. Elder He and Elder Master Bai could only stay in Celestial Peak City. Elder Master Bai was naturally unhappy with the Heavenly Saints sect's decision, but Xiao Chun did not say anything. Anyway, Xiao Shang had said that there was no need to worry about his safety in the Heavenly Saints sect. He did not know where Xiao Shang's confidence came from, but since he said so, Xiao Chun felt a lot more relieved. After asking Elder Master Bai to wait for him in Celestial Peak City, Xiao Chun went directly to the Heavenly Saints sect through the teleportation formation in Celestial Peak City. As one of the 4 great sacred sects of the Tiana continent, the Heavenly Sacred Sect is naturally located in a magnificent place. However, unlike the ethereal appearance of the Ancient Saints sect, the Heavenly Saints sect gave off a domineering feeling, just like the imperial palace of an empire. It gave off a majestic aura. Unlike the Ancient Saints sect, the buildings did not use the power of talisman arrays to float in the air. Instead, they were simply built on the ground. However, the buildings of the Heavenly Saints sect gave off only one feeling at first glance: magnificent and domineering. Whether it was the palace hall or the residence of ordinary disciples, they all exuded a domineering aura. As soon as he walked out of the teleportation formation of the Heavenly Saints sect, a half-saint deacon of the Heavenly Saints sect was already waiting for Xiao Chun. When he saw Xiao Chun, the half-saint deacon took the initiative to salute him. "Xiao Chun, prospective holy son, the sect has prepared a place for you to rest. Please take a rest for the time being." Having prepared a place for Xiao Chun to rest, Xiao Chun returned the salute. Thank you very much. Following the half-saint deacon, Xiao Chun came to a unique small courtyard. Along the way, Xiao Chun naturally asked about Qin Shuru's whereabouts. However, the half-saint deacon did not know. He just said that the Holy Master would make the arrangements and asked Xiao Chun to wait patiently for a while. The deacon did not say much, as there was no harm in waiting for a while. However, just as Xiao Chun arrived at the Heavenly Saint sect, Frost Python, the holy son of the Heavenly Saint sect, received the news immediately. Hearing that Xiao Chun had actually come to the Heavenly Saint sect, Frost Python's anger immediately soared. Back in the 100 Spirit world, Frost Python already hated Xiao Chun to the core. Moreover, after the 100 Spirit world, Qin Shuru did not treat Frost Python kindly at all. This made Frost Python blame everything on Xiao Chun. Sitting in the main hall of his cave residence, Frost Python's eyes flashed with intense hatred. He said coldly, Xiao Chun, I did not expect you to really dare to come to the Heavenly Saint sect. Good, very good. This time, I'd like to see who can save you. Last time in the 100 Spirit world, Frost Python was protected by Emperor Qing, so he could not do anything to Xiao Chun. Now that Xiao Chun had actually come to the Heavenly Saint sect, Frost Python's territory, it was up to him to trample on Xiao Chun however he wanted. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 805. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Although the ancient Saint sect's holy son had come to the Heavenly Saint sect, it wasn't a secret. Xiao Chun's arrival quickly spread throughout the Heavenly Saint sect. Of course, the scope of the news was limited to the upper echelons of the Heavenly Saint sect. As for the ordinary disciples, they didn't pay attention to such matters, and they didn't have a well-informed network. Xiao Chun was bored as he waited in the courtyard arranged by the Heavenly Saint sect. However, after only half an hour, someone came to visit him. What surprised him was that it was Guduya, Lin Nuo, and the other people from the Heavenly Saint continent. After not seeing each other for so many years, everyone was naturally happy. He invited Guduya and the others into the courtyard. Seeing Guduya's personal disciple uniform, Xiao Chun nodded secretly. It seemed that everyone hadn't wasted any time in these years. Everyone had made great progress. They secretly sighed at Guduya and Lin Nuo's progress. However, when facing Xiao Chun, the two of them had an indescribable feeling. When they were in the Heavenly Saint continent, Xiao Chun had already surpassed them. In the end, he was ranked first among the 10 great prides. Now, after coming to the Heavenly River continent, Xiao Chun had left them far behind. Guduya, who was ranked second among the 10 great prides, was only a personal disciple. However, Xiao Chun had already become the holy son of the ancient saints sect more than 2 years ago. The gap between them was constantly widening. Although Guduya and Lin Nuo were shocked, it also aroused their fighting spirit. As one of the 10 great prides of the Heavenly Saint continent, they didn't want to lose to Xiao Chun. When old friends met, everyone sat in the courtyard and looked at Xiao Chun. Lin Nuo said unwillingly, Xiao Chun, how did you cultivate? You've already reached the initial Tao transformation realm and even become the holy son of the ancient saint sect. You really make me jealous. I just came across some opportunities. It's not worth mentioning, Xiao Chun replied with a smile after hearing Lin Nuo's words. Since everyone was together, there was no need to hold back. After a round of banter, Guduya took the initiative to tell Xiao Chun about the Heavenly Chun continent situation in the ancient saint state. According to Guduya, when they first sensed the Tiana continent, they were directly teleported to the ancient sacred state. In addition to those present, many others were also cultivating in the ancient sacred state. However, due to various reasons, the others were not able to join the ancient sacred sect. Most of them were still cultivating in other sections. In addition, the Heavenly Wood Ruler and the Heavenly Weapons Ruler were also on the ancient sacred plane. However, in order to find an opportunity to break through to the Saint realm, The two of them had bid farewell to the others and gone off on their own. It had been a long time since anyone had heard from them. Xiao Chun naturally knew about the heavenly rulers. Their only purpose in coming to the Tiana continent was to find a chance to break through to the Saint realm. Therefore, they would definitely not act together with everyone else. For the heavenly rulers, ordinary training was of little use. Just like the ancient sacred state where Xiao Chun was from, the cultivators of the heavenly Chun continent and the heavenly sacred state had gradually established contact with each other after many years of adaptation and hard work. At this time, almost all the cultivators of the heavenly Chun continent and the heavenly sacred state could communicate with each other. This was good news. If the ancient sacred state and the heavenly sacred state were like this, then the cultivators of the heavenly Chun continent and the Yang sacred state and the Yin sacred state should also have established contact with each other. After all, in a foreign land, the only people they could trust and rely on were those from the heavenly Chun continent. Moreover, everyone present knew that in the Tianhe continent, the people of the heavenly Chun continent could help each other unconditionally. This had nothing to do with anything else other than the fact that they all had the same hometown. This kind of feeling was something no one on the Tiana continent could give. Everyone was doing well in the heavenly sacred state. Moreover, Guru Huya was preparing to become the quasi-holy son of the heavenly sacred sect. Regarding this, Xiao Chun was naturally happy for him. After chatting for a while, Xiao Chun finally opened his mouth and joked, "How can there be no wine at this time? Brother Guru, Brother Lin, no matter what, the heavenly sacred sect is still your territory. What? You won't even treat me to a drink." Since they had gathered again, they naturally couldn't go without wine. Hearing this, everyone laughed loudly. Immediately, Lin Nuo took out a dozen jars of wine from his space ring. These jars of wine were all treasured by Lin Nuo over the years. Normally, even if Guru Huya wanted to drink some, Lin Nuo would be reluctant to part with them. Today, however, he generously took them all out. Lin Nuo, in the past, when we wanted to drink a sip, you would reject us in every way possible. Why are you so generous today? Guru Huya laughed and teased. Even good wine needs to be matched with good days. If I were like you, I would have to take a sip at any time. I'm afraid I've already run out of wine, Lin Nuo replied, not to be outdone. Hearing the bickering between the two, everyone laughed loudly. The atmosphere in the courtyard was lively. Coupled with the effect of the wine, everyone was completely relaxed. However, in this moment of happiness, an uninvited guest came. An extremely abrupt voice came from the courtyard entrance. "Yo, it's quite lively. How about it? You don't mind us joining in, right?" Upon hearing the sudden voice, everyone's gazes looked towards the source of the voice, only to see a group of people appear at the entrance of the courtyard. They had come uninvited and directly barged in without any regard for the rules. At a glance, one could tell that this group of people did not come with good intentions. However, because of the high status of the person who came, Guru Huya still stood up and bowed. "Greetings to Frost Python, Holy Sun. May I know why Holy Sun has come?" The person who came was undoubtedly Frost Python and his lackeys. At the same time, there was a saintess-to-be beside Frost Python. Xiao Chun also knew this person. She was Yin Ci, whom he met during the 100 Spirit World battle. Facing Frost Python, Guru Huya and the others were very respectful. After all, they were all disciples of the Heavenly Saint sect. However, even though they were respectful, there was a cold glint in their eyes. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Frost Python was definitely here to cause trouble. Seeing that Frost Python came with bad intentions, and hearing Guru Huya's words, Frost Python walked into the courtyard with a cold and playful smile on his face. He stared at Xiao Chun and said indifferently, "It's nothing. I heard that an important guest came to my Heavenly Saint sect, so I came to take a look. I didn't expect it to be an old acquaintance." "What's wrong, Junior Xiao Chun? You don't have the guts to greet me after coming to the Heavenly Saint sect? Are you afraid that I will do something to you? Don't worry. This is the Heavenly Saint sect. I naturally won't kill you. Your life is not in danger." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. If you want to talk about Sword Master of 8 Desolation with more like-minded people, follow excellent reading literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find friends. Chapter 806. Frost Python said calmly. His voice was full of sarcasm and mockery. Gudawuya and the others were furious. Just as they were about to say something, they were stopped by Xiao Chun. He stepped forward and patted Gudawuya's shoulder. Gudawuya, Lin Nual, and the others were all disciples of the Heavenly Saints sect. If they offended Frost Python, they would have a hard time in the future. Therefore, Xiao Chun did not ask them to come forward. Moreover, Xiao Chun was not afraid of Frost Python. This was the Heavenly Saints sect. Would Frost Python dare to kill him? Moreover, with Xiao Shang here, Frost Python might not be able to get any benefits. Although Xiao Chun was not willing to rely on Xiao Shang's strength, he would be a fool if he still insisted on helping Frost Python, even though he knew he was no match for Frost Python. There were countless reasons why he was not afraid of Frost Python. Therefore, Xiao Chun would not let Gudawuya and the others offend Frost Python, the holy son of the Heavenly Saints sect. After stopping Gudawuya and the others, Xiao Chun signaled them to be at ease. Then, he stepped forward to Frost Python and said calmly, "So, you failed to kill me in the 100 Spirits world, and now you want to kill me in the Heavenly Saints sect?" Facing Frost Python, Xiao Chun was not polite. Hearing this, the hatred in Frost Python's eyes became more intense. This was the Heavenly Saints sect, Frost Python's territory. However, Xiao Chun was still so arrogant. This made Frost Python even angrier. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Frost Python laughed out loud. "Ah, good. You are indeed the prospective holy son of the ancient saint sect. You are ambitious. It seems that I will regret it for the rest of my life if I don't fight with junior brother Xiao Chun today." Frost Python did not want the others to fight. This was normal. Back in the 100 Spirits world, Xiao Chun already had the strength to defeat Yin Si. Now that 2 years had passed, Xiao Chun's strength would only be stronger. Therefore, Frost Python knew that if he let the others fight, including Yin Si, he would only be humiliating himself in the end. If he wanted to defeat Xiao Chun, he had to do it himself. This was what Frost Python had planned from the beginning. As he finished speaking, Frost Python's body, "Xiao! Xiao!" and Xiao Chun, when he felt Xiao Chun's, the aura on his body suddenly surged, and the terrifying aura soared into the sky. Frost Python's face changed when he felt the terrifying aura coming from Xiao Chun. Judging from the aura, Xiao Chun was not much weaker than Frost Python. Frost Python did not expect Xiao Chun to grow to such a level in 2 years. This caught Frost Python off guard. However, Frost Python was not the only one who felt Xiao Chun's aura. All the saints in the Heavenly Saints sect, including Prime, Saint Ice Lotus, also felt this strange aura. What Xiao Chun did not know was that Xiao Shang had purposely unleashed his aura in order to draw someone to him. In Prime Saint Ice Lotus's cave dwelling, Prime Saint Ice Lotus, who was sitting cross-legged on an ice lotus with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes when he sensed the aura. A complicated look flashed across his eyes, and in an instant, he disappeared from the spot. In the courtyard, Xiao Chun and Frost Python were confronting each other. Just as they were about to attack, a beautiful woman in a white dress appeared out of thin air. This beautiful lady in white was none other than Prime Saint Ice Lotus of the Heavenly Saints sect. Seeing Prime Saint Ice Lotus appear, the others didn't know her identity, but as the Saint Child, Frost Python was fortunate enough to see Prime Saint Ice Lotus before. His face changed immediately, and he retracted his aura. Frost Python bowed respectfully to Prime Saint Ice Lotus and said, "Disciple Frost Python pays his respects to Ancestor." Frost Python might be able to remain calm when facing other saints, but he was completely stunned when facing Prime Saint Ice Lotus. His attitude was respectful. After hearing Frost Python's words, the others, including Gudawuya, were stunned for a moment before they bowed respectfully. Disciple pays his respects to ancestor. Get out. Prime Saint Ice Lotus's eyes were fixed on Xiao Chun from the beginning. She did not even look at the crowd as she said indifferently, "Get out." Xiao Chun asked everyone to leave. Although the crowd was confused, they did not dare to say anything. The frost python was the only one who glared at Xiao Chun before it left. He did not expect Prime Saint Ice Lotus to suddenly appear, and this ruined all of Frost Python's plans. However, in front of Prime Saint Ice Lotus, even Frost Python did not dare to be impudent. Everyone quickly left the courtyard, and in an instant, only Xiao Chun and Prime Saint Ice Lotus were left in the courtyard. Prime Saint Ice Lotus looked at Xiao Chun with a complicated look. After a moment of silence, Prime Saint Ice Lotus muttered to herself in disappointment. "It's not him. It's true. It's been thousands of years. Why would he come back?" He did not understand what Prime Saint Ice Lotus was saying. Of course, the body was not controlled by Xiao Chun, but by Xiao Sheng. Since the body was controlled by Xiao Sheng, Xiao Chun did not see the complicated look in Xiao Sheng's eyes when Prime Saint Ice Lotus appeared. Prime Saint Ice Lotus was about to leave, but she seemed a little lonely. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. At this moment, Xiao Sheng slowly said, "Don't you see, Prime Saint Ice Lotus chased after white hair in a serene dream." It was a sentence that no one could understand, but in Prime Saint Ice Lotus's ears, it was like a sudden clap of thunder. Prime Saint Ice Lotus, who was about to leave, turned around abruptly upon hearing Xiao Chen's words. She stared at the unfamiliar Xiao Chun with disbelief in her eyes. You, she stammered. She wanted to say something, but when the words reached her mouth, she found that she could not say anything. Thousands of years of yearning had turned into silence at this moment. When their eyes met, Prime Saint Ice Lotus could not help but tremble, and tears welled up in her eyes. The dignified patriarch of the Heavenly Sage sect, one of the most powerful people in the Tiana continent, was like a weak young girl, holding back her tears in front of Xiao Sheng. Seeing Prime Saint Ice Lotus like this, Xiao Sheng said, Let's go to your cave first." This was not the place to talk, and Xiao Sheng could not show himself. Hearing this, Prime Saint Ice Lotus came to her senses. Without saying a word, she grabbed Xiao Chen's body and disappeared from the courtyard. Xiao Chen was naturally confused about the relationship between Prime Saint Ice Lotus and Xiao Sheng. However, looking at Prime Saint Ice Lotus's appearance, Xiao Chen, who was no longer an innocent young man, naturally guessed something. He secretly admired Prime Saint Ice Lotus in his heart. As expected of a patriarch, even Prime Saint Ice Lotus, please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 807. From Prime Saint Ice Lotus's performance just now, how could Xiao Chen not see that there must be something between her and Xiao Sheng? Prime Saint Ice Lotus's expression just now was exactly the same as Qin Shiru's when they first met. Xiao Chen secretly admired Xiao Sheng in his heart. He even took down the old ancestor of the Heavenly Sage sect. He was really a role model for his generation. Of course, what Xiao Chen didn't know was that Prime Saint Ice Lotus wasn't the old ancestor of the Heavenly Sage sect at that time. Being held by Prime Saint Ice Lotus, Xiao Chen felt as if he was taking a teleportation array. His vision turned dark, and he appeared in a world of ice and snow. This was really the cave residence of Prime Saint Ice Lotus. The entire cave residence seemed to have been frozen for thousands of years. It was snow-white as far as the eye could see, and even the houses were covered by thick snow. Landing directly in the courtyard, Prime Saint Ice Lotus released Xiao Chen. At the same time, Xiao Sheng's remnant soul floated out of Xiao Chen's body. The illusory remnant soul stood in front of Prime Saint Ice Lotus, and the two looked at each other. After thousands of years, seeing the face that she had yearned for day and night again, Prime Saint Ice Lotus couldn't help but cry. The dignified old ancestor of the Heavenly Sage sect was crying at this moment. After thousands of years of yearning, Perhaps even Prime Saint Ice Lotus herself didn't expect that she would see Xiao Sheng again one day. Looking at the crying Prime Saint Ice Lotus, Xiao Sheng's face was also full of attachment and memories. After a long while, Xiao Sheng spoke first. How have you been all these years? Hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Prime Saint Ice Lotus shook her head with tears in her eyes. Her meaning was obvious. She hadn't been living well. Hearing Prime Saint Ice Lotus's answer, Xiao Sheng sighed helplessly, but he didn't know what to say. It was really difficult to explain what had happened in the past in a short time. Otherwise, Xiao Sheng wouldn't have left and never returned. Even until his death, he didn't return to the Tiana continent. Seeing Xiao Sheng choose to remain silent, Prime Saint Ice Lotus seemed to erupt completely at this time. Without the slightest warning, she roared at Xiao Sheng. "You liar! Didn't you say that you would come back?" Prime Saint Ice Lotus roared. Xiao Sheng was speechless. Back then, Xiao had risen in the Tiana continent with his amazing talent. He had suppressed all the holy sons and holy daughters of that era. In the face of such a radiant man, there were not many women who could resist him. Ancient sage Ice Lotus was no exception. In the same era as Xiao Sheng, ancient Saint Ice Lotus was the saintess of the Sky Saint sect. She could be considered one of the most dazzling figures of that era. However, Xiao Sheng's presence was like a mountain pressing down on the saintesses and saintesses, making it difficult for them to rise. Both of them were the most outstanding people of that era. The two of them were a perfect match and soon became lovers. Xiao Sheng and Prime Saint Ice Lotus were lovers. At that time, neither of them had broken through to the saint realm. They fell in love with each other and pledged to marry each other. Later, they traveled together to the Tianhe continent. During that time, the two of them traveled together, cultivated together, lived together, and even lived in seclusion together for a period of time. In the end, the two of them stepped into the saint realm and became saints. Then, Xiao Sheng challenged the saints of the Tianhe continent. Finally, with an undefeated record, he suppressed all the saints of the Tianhe continent and became the strongest saint of the Tianhe continent. He was titled Tai. It could be said that he stood at the top of the Tianhe continent. At this time, Xiao Sheng also had the idea of returning to the Tianqian continent. After all, that was his home. After being away from home for so many years, Xiao Sheng wanted to go back and take a look. Before leaving, Xiao Sheng and Prime Saint Ice Lotus agreed that when he returned from the Tianqian continent, the two of them would get married. After that, they would travel the world together, see the prosperity of the world, and travel to every continent between heaven and earth. Because of this agreement, Prime Saint Ice Lotus waited for thousands of years. Knowing that she had become the ancestor of the Tianqian sect, Xiao Sheng did not return. Keeping a promise for thousands of years, she could not help but think of Xiao Sheng every night. It was no wonder that Prime Saint Ice Lotus was like this at this moment. "Liar! You liar! Didn't you say you would come back? You liar!" Facing Xiao Sheng, Prime Saint Ice Lotus cried and roared, as if she wanted to vent all the resentment that had accumulated in her heart for thousands of years. Facing Prime Saint Ice Lotus' roar, Xiao Sheng did not refute. He just listened silently. He had indeed broken his promise. As for the reason, it was needless to say. It was because he had died in the Tianqian continent. Looking at the two people in front of him, Xiao Chun did not expect his ancestor to have such a past. At the same time, he sincerely admired Prime Saint Ice Lotus. For a promise, she had actually persisted for thousands of years. One must know that in these thousands of years, it was not that no one had pursued Prime Saint Ice Lotus. On the contrary, there were many, and all of them were top figures in the Tianhe continent. However, in the face of these people's pursuit, Prime Saint Ice Lotus rejected them all. In the end, Prime Saint Ice Lotus became the ancestor of the Tianqian sect. No one dared to pursue her, or it could be said that they were not qualified to do so. However, she still kept the promise Xiao Sheng gave her. Xiao Sheng didn't know what to say. In the end, he could only silently pull Ice Lotus Prime into his arms. He hugged her quietly as he listened to her complaints and curses. Xiaosheng himself did not think that there would be a day when they would meet again. He also did not think that Prime Saint Ice Lotus would actually keep the promise from back then. Until now, she was still alone. Perhaps if he did not appear today, Prime Saint Ice Lotus's final outcome would be to die alone. "I'm sorry, I came back late," Xiaosheng said slowly as he hugged Prime Saint Ice Lotus. After venting all the resentment, loneliness, and grievances in her heart, Prime Saint Ice Lotus gradually stopped crying. Then, with a red face, she broke free from Xiaosheng's embrace. She looked like a shy little girl. An old monster who had lived for thousands of years was actually as shy as a little girl. This was definitely a rare thing. Perhaps because she had vented enough, or perhaps because she was shy in her heart. Prime Saint Ice Lotus did not dare to look at Xiaosheng. She lowered her head and asked arrogantly, "Then why didn't you come back? Also, what's with your current appearance? Only a wisp of remnant soul is left." Hearing Prime Saint Ice Lotus's words, Xiaosheng roughly explained the whole story to Prime Saint Ice Lotus, including what happened in the heavenly Qin continent. He did not hide anything from Prime Saint Ice Lotus. Xiaosheng did not come back because he died in battle in the heavenly Qin continent. If he did not leave a wisp of Prime Saint Soul in the heavenly river continent, he would not be here today. He told Prime Saint Ice Lotus the truth. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 808. After explaining everything to Prime Saint Ice Lotus, Xiaosheng pointed at Xiaochun and said, "Oh, that's right. This kid is my descendant. He's also a member of the Xiao family. It's all thanks to him that I was able to come back to life." Xiaosheng didn't have the time to introduce Xiaochun. Everyone thought that this was the end of the matter and that Xiaosheng and Prime Saint Ice Lotus would talk about their love for each other. However, no one expected that Prime Saint Ice Lotus' face would turn cold when she heard Xiaosheng's words. "Oh, your descendant? Xiaosheng, does this mean that you've already established a family in the heavenly Qin continent and have children and grandchildren?" Prime Saint Ice Lotus didn't care about the purpose of Xiaosheng's words. The purpose of Xiaosheng's words was to introduce Xiaochun. However, Prime Saint Ice Lotus' point was that Xiaosheng already had his own descendant in the heavenly Qin continent. In other words, Xiaosheng was already married in the heavenly Qin continent. It was the same sentence, but the emphasis of men and women were completely different. Xiaochun had seen it for himself today. Along with Prime Saint Ice Lotus' words, a gust of cold air appeared out of nowhere. In an instant, the surrounding air seemed to freeze. Even though Xiao Qin's cultivation base was at the initial stage of the Dao transformation realm, he still couldn't help but feel a bone-piercing chill when the cold air invaded his body. Xiaosheng didn't expect that Prime Saint Ice Lotus would be angered by just one sentence. He didn't know what to say at this moment, and could only put on a fawning smile. That Prime Saint Ice Lotus, at that time, Xiaosheng stuttered as he tried to explain himself. Prime Saint Ice Lotus narrowed her eyes slightly and revealed a cold smile when she saw his expression. It was as if Xiaosheng's answer didn't satisfy her, she would make Xiaosheng suffer the consequences. Xiaosheng became even more nervous when he saw the change in Ancient Saint Ice Lotus' expression. In the end, he blurted out, "I don't remember clearly, but I think they got married thousands of years ago." Ice cold. Xiaosheng's original intention was to feign ignorance and muddle through. However, it was obvious that he had underestimated the resentment that had been accumulated in Prime Saint Ice Lotus' heart for thousands of years. Therefore, before Xiaosheng could speak, an ice spike shot toward Xiaosheng. Seeing this, Xiaosheng's hair stood on end. Without any hesitation, he retreated and narrowly avoided the ice spike attack. "Prime Saint Ice Lotus, are you crazy? How can a remnant of my soul withstand such an attack?" Xiaosheng roared angrily after narrowly dodging the attack. However, his anger was quickly overwhelmed by Prime Saint Ice Lotus' monstrous resentment. Prime Saint Ice Lotus had persevered for thousands of years for a promise, But Xiao Sheng had actually settled down in the heavenly Chun continent and had many children and grandchildren. Comparing the two, one could imagine how strong the resentment in prime Saint Ice Lotus' heart was. The cold air became stronger and stronger, as if it was going to freeze the world. At this moment, Xiao Chan felt for the first time how terrifying the four sacred sects' old ancestors were. Compared to ordinary saints, an old immortal like Prime Saint Ice Lotus was definitely much more terrifying. Feeling Prime Saint Ice Lotus' monstrous resentment, the anger in Xiao Sheng's heart was instantly extinguished. He smiled embarrassedly again. Prime Saint Ice Lotus, listen to me. At that time, the elders in my family forced me into a corner. Yes, that's right. The elders in my family forced me into a corner. I had no choice. He had no choice but to push everything to the elders in his family. In fact, Xiao Sheng did not complain. After returning to the heavenly Chun continent, he did marry and have children. It was said that he was from a large clan in the heavenly Chun continent. His status was not low, and his appearance was also impeccable. It was because Xiao Sheng married and had children that the Xiao clan was formed. Otherwise, Xiao Chun would have been nowhere to be found. Of course, Xiao Chun did not know why Xiao Sheng married and had children in the heavenly Qin continent. Moreover, Xiao Chun was not stupid enough to say anything. Prime Saint Ice Lotus was on the verge of exploding. After hearing Xiao Sheng's explanation, the smile on Prime Saint Ice Lotus's face became even brighter. At the same time, it became even colder. There was a thick chill in her voice. Oh, I was forced by the elders in my family. Xiao Sheng, I have waited for you for so many years. I did not expect that you have already become an ancestor. Good, very good. Today, let me kill you with my own hands, you heartless man. After saying that, Prime Saint Ice Lotus attacked again. Seeing this, Xiao Sheng did not dare to stay any longer. He immediately turned around and ran. Before he left, he did not forget to shout at Xiao Chun. Boy, why are you still not running? Do you want to be killed? Don't forget, you are my son. Xiao Sheng naturally did not dare to stay any longer. Who knew if Prime Saint Ice Lotus would really destroy his remnant soul in a fit of anger? After hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Xiao Chun also came back to his senses. He immediately used the tiger's stampede and rushed out of the courtyard in a flash. Xiao Chun had definitely suffered an unexpected calamity. It had nothing to do with him at all. However, he had to admit that Xiao Sheng's words were not unreasonable. He was originally Xiao Sheng's descendant. If Prime Saint Ice Lotus was furious and killed him, it would be a great injustice. He ran all the way. At the same time, Xiao Chun thought helplessly. She was already an ancestor. How could you be jealous? Prime Saint Ice Lotus was definitely jealous just now. However, Xiao Chun was obviously not the same. When a woman is jealous, it doesn't matter what age she is. Xiao Sheng and Xiao Chun were slightly relieved that Prime Saint Ice Lotus did not chase after them. They ran all the way out of Prime Saint Ice Lotus courtyard and arrived at an ice field. Xiao Chun and Xiao Sheng then stopped. Although they had already run out of Prime Saint Ice Lotus courtyard, the two of them were still in her cave. After taking a deep breath, Xiao Chun looked at Xiao Sheng speechlessly and said, I say, Ancestor, you are too unkind. Since you have already promised her, why did you get married in the heavenly Chun continent? No wonder she is so angry. Scram, what do you know? Moreover, if I didn't get married, you would still be jumping around in the cracks of a rock. You should thank me. Do you understand? Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Xiao Sheng scolded in annoyance. Hearing this, Xiao Chun curled his lips and said, Okay, I don't know. However, I can't help you with this matter. Ancestor, you have to think of a way yourself. Don't forget that I still want to see Shui Ro. If you can't deal with her, I won't be able to see Shui Ro. Prime Saint Ice Lotus was definitely in a fit of anger. Xiao Chun also chose to not care about this matter. After all, it was Xiao Sheng who caused this trouble. Naturally, he would solve it himself. Moreover, Xiao Chun was also worried that Prime Saint Ice Lotus would go crazy and directly kill him. One had to know that the resentment in Prime Saint Ice Lotus' heart had been accumulated for thousands of years. To put it bluntly, That woman was a woman who had been resentful for thousands of years. She couldn't be provoked, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 809. Xiao Chen didn't care about the matter at all. Hearing this, Xiao Sheng was furious and scolded. "You heartless brat! I've helped you so much, and you're acting like this? Don't forget that I'm your ancestor." "You're my ancestor, but what should I do? In the eyes of ancient sage Ice Lotus, I'm probably your vile spawn. If I go, I might be slapped to death by her," Xiao Chen replied when he heard Xiao Sheng's scolding. Xiao Chen had already made up his mind that he could not interfere in this matter. Hearing this, Xiao Sheng also fell silent. Indeed, in the eyes of ancient sage Ice Lotus, she probably didn't have a good impression of Xiao Chen. After all, Xiao Chen was her junior. After a long silence, Xiao Chen took the initiative to speak to Xiao Sheng, who still had a bitter expression on his face. "Ancestor, there's no need to think about it. This matter is your fault. Hurry up and kneel at the door." It was not unreasonable for ancient sage Ice Lotus to be angry and jealous. Anyone would be the same. I've waited for you for thousands of years, but you actually got married and had a child in another place. Who wouldn't go crazy if this happened to them? Therefore, Xiao Chen was not biased at all. He directly advised Xiao Sheng to kneel in front of ancient sage Ice Lotus's door. However, although Xiao Chen was telling the truth, Xiao Chen stubbornly refused to admit it. "Kneel? Brat, you're still too inexperienced. Why would I kneel to a woman? Brat, learn from me. Today, I'll show you what it means to show off one's authority." After saying that, Xiao Sheng proudly returned to ancient sage Ice Lotus's residence. In response, Xiao Chen pursed his lips and didn't follow. He would wait until ancient sage Ice Lotus's anger subsided. To be honest, Xiao Sheng was still a little nervous when he returned alone. After all, he was in the wrong first. Moreover, Xiao Sheng was only a remnant soul now. He was no match for ancient sage Ice Lotus. Once this woman became angry, Xiao Sheng would be at her mercy. He wouldn't be able to resist at all. He didn't dare to face ancient sage Ice Lotus. However, Xiao Chen's time was very tight. He had to rush back to the ancient sage sect to participate in the inheritance ceremony. It wasn't a good idea to waste time here. With no other choice, Xiao Sheng braced himself and returned to ancient sage Ice Lotus's residence. He gently knocked on the courtyard door. However, after waiting for a long time, there was no response. Finally, Xiao Sheng carefully pushed open the door and tiptoed in. However, as soon as Xiao Sheng entered the courtyard, he saw Prime Saint Ice Lotus sitting in the middle of the courtyard. Her face was still as cold as ever, and her beautiful eyes were still glaring at Xiao Sheng with resentment as she spoke in an extremely cold tone. "You still dare to come back?" Her words were filled with resentment. Hearing that, Xiao Sheng kept repeating in his heart, as if to encourage himself. He carefully walked in front of ancient sage Ice Lotus. Then, like flowing water, Xiao Sheng bent his knees and knelt in front of ancient sage Ice Lotus. If Xiao Chen was present at this moment, he would definitely say, "Yes, old ancestor, not bad. You have a lot of ambition." Without any hesitation, Xiao Chen knelt in front of ancient sage Ice Lotus and said with a fawning smile, "Ice Lotus, don't be angry. I admit that I was wrong in this matter. However, the situation back then didn't give me a choice. Moreover, after so many years, I still haven't forgotten you." Xiao Sheng's attitude was sincere. He admitted his mistake and tried to please her. In the end, ancient sage Ice Lotus's resentment gradually dissipated. After all, they hadn't seen each other for thousands of years. Although she was resentful, she still missed Xiao Sheng very much. Under the intertwining of various emotions, ancient sage Ice Lotus gradually forgave Xiao Sheng. Of course, during the whole process, Xiao Sheng naturally suffered a lot. Moreover, Xiao Sheng said all kinds of fawning words. Only then did ancient sage Ice Lotus's resentment gradually dissipate. She finally forgave Xiao Sheng. After that, Without Xiao Chun, the third wheel, the two of them confided in each other in the courtyard. Of course, most of the time, it was Xiao Sheng who was comforting ancient sage Ice Lotus. The atmosphere gradually eased. After confiding in each other, the two of them talked about the three great sacred sects activating their heritage. Ice Lotus, what happened when the three great sacred sects activated their heritage at the same time? Xiao Sheng looked at ancient sage Ice Lotus and asked. Hearing this, ancient sage Ice Lotus rolled her eyes at him and said unhappily, "Isn't it all because of you? Me?" The three great sacred sects activated their heritage at the same time because of him? Hearing this, Xiao Sheng was depressed. What did it have to do with him? But soon, ancient sage Ice Lotus explained. Do you know who the old ancestor of Sacred sect is? Who? It can't be Inu, right? Xiao Sheng guessed. Xiao Sheng's guess was correct. The old ancestor of Sacred sect was ancient sage Inu. There was a hint of jealousy in her voice. Ancient sage Ice Lotus said, "That's right. The old ancestor of Sacred sect is Inu. Back then, you rejected her like that, and she has always held a grudge in her heart. Moreover, she has memorized the construction method of the Bloodgate. Now, she is about to succeed. Once the Bloodgate is formed, you know what will happen. The book that recorded the construction method of the Bloodgate was probably found by Xiao Sheng and the others. Therefore, Xiao Chun naturally knew that the Bloodgate was a spatial passage that connected to the northern demon continent. Hearing this, Xiao Sheng's eyes flashed with a dignified look. With the invasion of the demon race, it was no wonder that the three great sacred sects chose to activate their heritage. In the face of the invasion of the demon race, it was no longer a matter of the survival of the sacred sect, but the survival of the entire Sky River continent. Once they couldn't resist the invasion of the demon race, the entire Sky River continent would be finished. One had to know that the conquest of the demon race was tantamount to destruction. They would kill all the humans on the continent, including the demon beasts. In the end, the entire Sky River continent would be finished. He didn't expect that ancient sage Yin you would do such a thing. Regarding this, Xiao Sheng felt helpless. In the past, Xiao Sheng had rejected ancient sage Inu because he saw through her stubbornness and morbidity. He didn't expect that because of his rejection, ancient sage Inu would hold a grudge until now. Moreover, she didn't hesitate to destroy the Sky River continent to make him and ancient sage Ice Lotus regret. Seeing Xiao Sheng fall into silence, ancient sage Ice Lotus said with some reproach, "In the past, we all asked you to kill her, but you couldn't do it yourself. Do you regret it now?" Xiao Sheng's rejection was one of the reasons why ancient sage Inu had come to this point today. Another reason was her own character, and because of some of the things she had done in the past, ancient sage Ice Lotus and the others tried their best to persuade Xiao Sheng to kill ancient sage Inu. However, Xiao Sheng was soft-hearted and didn't agree. He even stopped ancient sage Ice Lotus and the others from killing her, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 8:10. Ancient sage Inu's character was stubborn and twisted. Xiao Chun had known this since a long time ago. Not only Xiao Sheng, but ancient sage Ice Lotus and the others also knew about ancient sage Inu's character. Although she was charming and seductive, her character was not flattering. In the past, ancient sage Inu and ancient sage Ice Lotus both liked Xiao Sheng. At the same time, they had gone out to gain experience together, and more than once. However, during their last experience together, ancient sage Inu took a fancy to a treasure. In the end, she didn't hesitate to kill her companions. This matter was eventually learned by others. Everyone was furious and felt that they couldn't let ancient sage Inu go. However, because of Xiao Sheng's soft-heartedness, they let ancient sage Inu go. Of course, because of this, Xiao Sheng also directly rejected ancient sage Inu, telling her that he wouldn't accept her. After being rejected by Xiao Sheng, Ancient sage Enyu had always held a grudge in her heart. At the same time, with the passage of time, this grudge didn't weaken. On the contrary, it became more and more twisted. In the end, ancient sage Enyu believed that the reason Xiao Sheng rejected her was entirely because of ancient sage Ice Lotus and the others. Therefore, ancient sage Enyu had the idea of destroying the Sky River continent. That was why she began to construct the Blood Door, intending to borrow the power of the demon race. The past kept emerging in her mind. At the same time, ancient sage Ice Lotus also smiled and said, "What's wrong? Do you regret not listening to us in the past?" If they had listened to ancient sage Ice Lotus and the others' advice and directly killed ancient sage Enyu, today's matter wouldn't have happened. Hearing this, Xiao Sheng helplessly smiled bitterly. "It's not that I regret it. In the past, I really couldn't do it. No matter what, ancient sage Enyu has done a lot for me. I really can't just stand by and watch you kill her." Did he regret it? The answer was no. Not to mention Xiao Sheng's indecisiveness. Even if he could do it again, Xiao Sheng would not do it. Although ancient sage Enyu's character was stubborn and twisted, it was undeniable that her feelings for Xiao Sheng were real, and she had indeed done a lot for Xiao Sheng. In other words, Prime Saint Enyu's feelings for Xiao Sheng were no less than Prime Saint Ice Lotus's. Moreover, after so many years, Prime Saint Enyu clearly hadn't forgotten about Xiao Sheng. Otherwise, she wouldn't have constructed the Blood Door. For a woman who loved him deeply, even if she had made a big mistake, as Xiao Sheng, he really couldn't do it. Perhaps all of this was fate. The Sky River continent was destined to face such a calamity. It had been peaceful with the northern demon continent for countless years. Now, these two neighbors were finally going to face each other head-on. Let's do our best and leave the rest to fate. Although the demon race is strong, our Sky River continent is not powerless. In the end, Xiao Sheng said slowly, it was too late to say anything now. Even if they killed ancient sage Enyu now, the Blood Door would still exist, and the space channel would still be opened. Therefore, what the Sky River continent needed to do now was to prepare for war and do their best to repel the invasion of the demon race. After hearing Xiao Sheng's words, ancient sage Ice Lotus didn't say anything more. Then, the two talked about Xiao Sheng's resurrection. With the nourishment of the heavenly spiritual pool, coupled with the help of ancient sage Ice Lotus, the chances of Xiao Sheng's resurrection were very high. It was just that it would take a long time, and they didn't know if he could make it before the invasion of the demon race. After not seeing each other for thousands of years, Xiao Sheng and ancient sage Ice Lotus naturally had endless things to talk about. Unfortunately, Xiao Sheng was just a remnant soul now. Even if he and ancient sage Ice Lotus were alone, they couldn't do anything. Xiao Sheng couldn't do anything. But on the other side, Xiao Chun was different. At this time, Xiao Chun was with Qin Shiru. Shortly after Xiao Sheng left, Qin Shiru found Xiao Chun and took Xiao Chun to his residence. As the last disciple of ancient sage Ice Lotus, Qin Shu naturally had his own small courtyard in this cave mansion. The two of them chatted together in the room. Compared to Xiao Sheng, who could only talk and not do anything, Xiao Chun, who was a living man, was naturally very unscrupulous. Moreover, she had been separated from Qin Shiru for so many years. As the saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Now that there was a chance, she naturally couldn't control herself. After a while, Qin Shiru snuggled in Xiao Chen's arms with a sweet smile on her face. The famous iceberg beauty of the heavenly sage sect was actually so sweet at this time. If this scene was seen by others, their jaws would probably drop. In all these years in the heavenly sage sect, Qin Shiru was extremely cold to both men and women. It was as if no one could really get close to her. This was the case with the ice goddess body. Even if Qin Shiru didn't deliberately show her cold side, she still gave people the feeling that she was ice cold. Perhaps only in front of Xiao Chan would Qin Shiru show such a feminine side. Of course, it was undeniable that Qin Shiru's feminine side was very beautiful. It was simply beautiful to the point of falling off. Similarly, Xiao Chun felt a warm current in her heart. After seeing Qin Shuru, she finally felt relieved. Next, there were only Hundred Flower Fairy, Xiao Qing, and Gu Lingyao. Suddenly thinking of the heritage, Xiao Chun looked at Qin Shuru and asked, "By the way, Shui Ro, has your heavenly sage sect also activated the heritage inheritance?" Hearing this, Qin Shuru didn't hide anything and nodded truthfully. Yes, it will be activated in 7 days. The timing of the activation was the same as the ancient sage sect. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was a little suspicious. The heavenly sage sect had also activated the heritage inheritance, and it was said that the Yangxing sect had done the same. The 3 major holy sects had activated the heritage inheritance at the same time. This was really a little strange. Something big must have happened, but she didn't know for the time being. Next, she asked Qin Shuru if he had obtained the heritage inheritance. Faced with this question, Qin Shuru made a rare joke. "I'm the last disciple of the ancestor. Husband, do you think I've obtained it?" Xiao Chen's words were simply nonsense. With Qin Shuru's status, how could he not have obtained the heritage inheritance? Moreover, Qin Shuru and Xiao Chen were the same. They had both obtained the heritage inheritance at the saint level. Qin Shuru also had to accept the heritage inheritance of the heavenly sage sect. As a result, both of them were a little pressed for time. Moreover, Xiao Chen would have to rush back to the ancient sage sect soon. There wasn't much time left for the two of them. Because of this, Xiao Chun and Qin Shuru didn't do anything in the next few days. They just stayed together all day long. Xiao Sheng and Ice Lotus Ancient Sage didn't disturb the two of them either. Obviously, they were also reluctant to be separated. However, Xiao Sheng was a little pitiful. He could only watch and couldn't do anything. He was just a remnant soul. Xiao Sheng naturally couldn't do anything, unlike Xiao Chun, who could fall asleep gently every night. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommended. Chapter 811. A woman was a hero's grave. Xiao Chun had deeply experienced this saying in the past few days. Although he didn't think of himself as a hero and had never thought of becoming one, with Qin Shuoro by his side, Xiao Qin didn't cultivate for 3 days straight. He didn't want to cultivate at all. Every day, he just wanted to be with Qin Shuru. Even if it was just quietly watching the stars at night or taking a walk in the snow, Xiao Chun was very satisfied. The peaceful and very warm days passed quickly. On the 4th day, at noon, Xiao Sheng and Ice Lotus Prime came together. Obviously, they had already known that Xiao Chun and Qin Shu were together. Ice Lotus Prime did not say anything about this, nor did she have any intention of stopping Xiao Chun and Qin Shuru from being together. At the same time, perhaps because of Xiao Sheng's efforts in the past few days, the resentment in Ice Lotus Prime's heart had completely dissipated. There was no longer any hostility in her eyes when she looked at Xiao Chun. On the contrary, there was a faint sense of care and concern that an elder would have for a junior. It should be because she loved the house and its crow. After all, he was Xiao Sheng's junior. However, in any case, Ice Lotus Prime did not have any hostility towards him and did not object to his relationship with Qin Shuru. As a result, Xiao Chun was relieved. "Master." Upon seeing Ice Lotus Prime, Qin Shuru bowed respectfully. It was obvious that Qin Shuru respected Ice Lotus Prime very much. Compared to Qin Shuru's benevolent master and disciple, Xiao Chun and Xiao Sheng gave off a completely different feeling. Xiao Sheng came in front of Xiao Chun and, without any warning, lifted his foot and scolded him angrily. "You heartless thing! Have you forgotten about me now that you have a wife? Why didn't you come to greet me in the past 3 days? Aren't you afraid that something will happen to me? Don't forget that I'm only a remnant soul now, you heartless little bastard." He scolded with a displeased expression. Hearing this, Xiao Chun replied in annoyance. "You want me to pay my respects to you? Do you have time to see me? You're still talking about me. Ancestor, didn't you forget about me after you got a wife?" Xiao Chun and Xiao Sheng had been immersed in the tenderness of Qin Shuru for the past few days. So did Xiao Sheng. Therefore, there was no need to talk about Xiao Chun. Sure enough, after hearing Xiao Chen's words, Xiao Sheng immediately changed the topic. He first turned to look at Qin Shiru. After sizing him up for a while, he nodded with satisfaction. Nice god physique. Not bad, not bad. I'm very satisfied that a little girl like you can be with my good-for-nothing boy. He was naturally satisfied with Qin Shiru. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Sheng turned to look at Xiao Chen again. His face instantly darkened. Little bastard, it's about time for you to return to the ancient sacred sect, right? This little girl is going to accept the heritage of the ancient sacred sect, and so are you. Don't delay it for me. The heritage was very important, and Xiao Chun absolutely could not miss it. Therefore, Xiao Sheng specially came today to urge Xiao Chun to return to the ancient sacred sect. As for other things, they could wait until the heritage was over. Xiao Chun nodded. Naturally, Xiao Chun would not act rashly. If he missed the heritage, he would probably regret it for the rest of his life. Xiao Sheng knew what was more important. Seeing Xiao Chun nod, Xiao Sheng took a token from ancient Saint Ice Lotus and casually tossed it to Xiao Chun. Leave today. With this token, no one will dare to stop you when you come to the Heavenly Saint sect in the future. Get ready and get your ass back to the ancient Saint sect. This token was given by the ancient sacred ice lotus. There was an ice lotus engraved on the front. With this token, let alone coming and going freely in the ancient sacred sect, even if he met the holy son of the ancient sacred sect, no one would dare to be disrespectful to Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun consciously put the token into his storage ring. Naturally, he would not refuse such a thing. With this token, even if Qin Shiru was in the ancient sacred sect in the future, Xiao Chun could come at any time. However, after putting away the token, Xiao Chun looked at Xiao Sheng doubtfully and asked, "Old ancestor, will I go back to the ancient sacred sect? Won't you go back with me?" From Xiao Sheng's tone, it seemed that he did not intend to go back to the ancient sacred sect with him. Hearing this, Xiao Sheng also said very seriously, "I won't go back for the time being. I have to stay in the ancient sacred sect for a period of time to fuse with the treasure I told you about before. If I'm not around, I'll stay in the ancient sacred sect for at least 3 months. If I'm not by your side, you have to be careful. Also, I know that you're planning to go to the 100,000 Fire territory. You can't go back alone, okay?" Because he needed the help of the ancient sacred ice lotus to fuse with the treasure, Xiao Sheng could not go back to the ancient sacred sect with Xiao Chun. Xiao Sheng was also worried about Xiao Chen's safety. Feeling Xiao Sheng's concern for him, Xiao Chun nodded respectfully. Then, there was nothing to prepare. Under the escort of Qin Shiru, Xiao Chun left the cave residence and walked towards the ancient sacred sect's teleportation formation. Perhaps it was because they were going to separate again. Qin Shiru was in low spirits along the way. Xiao Chun could only comfort him. "Shiru, it's not like we're going to part forever. After you and I have received the inheritance, I'll come back to find you. Don't forget that your master gave me a token. With this token, we can come to the ancient sacred sect whenever we want." Xiao Chun comforted him. With Xiao Chen's comfort, Qin Shiru's mood did improve a lot. However, when he heard that Xiao Chun was going to come to the ancient sacred sect again, Qin Shiru rejected him and said in a somewhat spoiled tone, "No, I'll come to find you next time. After I've received the inheritance, I'll go to the ancient sacred sect to find you." The next time, it would be your turn to go to the ancient sacred sect to find Xiao Chun. Hearing this, Xiao Chun didn't say anything else and walked towards the teleportation formation. The teleportation formation wasn't too far away, so it didn't take long for the two of them to arrive at the teleportation formation. Just as they were about to leave, an extremely untimely voice sounded. "Oh, are you leaving already? Xiao Chun, do you think that you can leave the ancient sacred sect so easily?" The good atmosphere was ruined by this voice. Looking towards the source of the voice, Xiao Chun saw the frost python striding towards them with a group of lackeys. Xiao Chun didn't say anything, but Qin Shiru was completely enraged. Qin Shiru was already in a bad mood when he was about to leave Xiao Chun. Now that the frost python was here to make trouble, his mood was naturally extremely bad. He looked coldly at the frost python and shouted without giving him any face. Frost python, scram. He directly asked the frost python to scram. Hearing this, the frost python's eyes flashed with anger. Facing Chin Shuru's scolding, the frost python felt as if he had swallowed a fly. However, he couldn't do anything to Chin Shuru, so he could only vent his anger on Xiao Chun. Looking directly at Xiao Chun, the frost python said fiercely, "What, Xiao Chun, do you only know how to hide behind a woman? Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.